How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? What's the real truth about Citizen Kane?
It'll probably turn out to be a very simple thing.
Hello, everybody. We hope you're doing well. I'm Parker.
I'm your plastic and enthusiastic host, LeFevre.
I'm your fantastic scholastic host, Will Kauser.
And I'm Max.
And welcome to Better Than Citizen Kane, the highly subjective show where we look at a movie and ask the question, is it better than Citizen Kane?
And if you like Citizen Kane, that's fine, because we're not here to hate on it.
But when every movie ever made is a reasonable contender for the title of greatest film of all time, you have to wonder, better than Citizen Kane?
So grab your roller skates and get ready to feel, because today's episode we're crossing over to Barbie Land with our friends from Mind Over Mattel as we dive into Greta Gerwig's Barbie.
That was profound. I can't believe you came up with that.
Thank you.
Way to
I
go.
came up with that.
Wow.
We
Let's
just
go.
all did
You're
that.
a prophet.
We just
We all
did
just-
that.
Wow.
Well, I listened to a lot of Better Than Citizen Kane, so I have the intro memorized.
Right, and I binged your entire show on like Wednesday last week.
Yeah.
You haven't been a lifelong listener? You haven't been keeping up?
You
Not
heard it here
lifelong,
first.
no.
Wow.
And Max's address is...
Drum roll, please. So
Yeah.
what's happening?
So what do we do now?
So what's happening, and so what do we do now, are the questions of
Oh, I
the
thought
weekend.
maybe you were going to give an
Yeah.
answer.
I think.
Oh, I see what
No,
you're
I
doing.
just
No, I see,
like.
yeah.
Ain't that the way?
We're segueing.
Yeah.
Yes.
If for whatever reason you weren't able to deduce from our opening, we finally are doing our big crossover episode.
Mission
We finally
Impossible. Here we go.
We've got
Mission Impossible.
Podcast.
Fallout Nation Part 1.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 7.
Wait, can I tell a story, actually?
Yeah.
We went to go see Barbie at Broovies recently, and me and my friends wandered into Mission Impossible. We walked in and immediately got shushed by everybody because we're like, no, where are we going to sit? They shushed us. We sat, so I have actually seen 4 seconds of Mission Impossible because I remembered that Tom Cruise is not in the movie we're discussing today.
That was a good one.
That was really embarrassing.
So, Mission Impossible, better than Citizen Kane.
No, the 4 seconds I saw were not as good as the 11 seconds of Citizen Kane that I've seen.
Better Than Citizen Kane and Mind Over Mattel are both Odd Brothers podcasts.
That's right.
Okay.
We've brought the podcasts together to discuss the movie of the hour, of the year, of the moment. Greta Gerwig's Barbie. And
The
I'm
movie
sure,
of the year.
The movie of the year. And I'm sure that we have a lot to say.
Absolutely.
It's good.
I'm done doing
It's
that.
okay, yeah.
That's all I have to say.
It's really good. You should
Well, good
see
night,
it.
folks.
Well, love you.
The world changed.
The world did change.
We are living
Yeah.
in a different society than the one we were in on Thursday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the outfits and the colors that we're wearing weren't intentionally chosen. Those happened. I woke up this
To
morning
us.
wearing this
Yeah,
because Barbie happened.
It's true.
that's already happened.
My hair has never looked better
Parker-
than waking up post-Barbie.
Parker was always going to dress like Alan.
Yeah.
And has.
Yeah.
Always has.
Okay, yeah. That's fair.
Pre-post
And
and,
that's
forever
not a bad
Alan.
thing.
That's not a bad thing.
And that's great.
We
Oh, you
love
are
Alan.
Alan. That's great.
We
I
love
like
that.
that's from the movie.
Uh,
How do you guys do this? Because what
Do you
we
guys
do,
do the jokes from the movie?
because we just do the jokes
Because
from the
no
movie.
one's ever seen anything we're talking about.
Yeah, that's
no,
what's funny is-
No, the
real
girlies
quick.
have. I
All right, the
didn't mean to
timeout
say
here. The
that,
timeout
Bobby.
we have to say is, this is your big old massive spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about the movie in depth. We're going to be talking about the bits. We're going to be doing the jokes. If you haven't watched the movie, go experience this movie, then come back and we can all hang out together. It'll be...
Oh,
Like, actually, I'm earnestly begging you.
Yeah,
Go
please.
see
okay.
it.
So this is the best part about the Barbie movie, because it's like, oh, you haven't seen Barbie yet? Yeah, it's good. Go see it. And then you pause the podcast right now. Okay, ready? So we're going to say, hey, you haven't seen Barbie yet? Go see it. Pause. Unpause. Welcome.
Congrats.
Outside of the main
I
show.
just saw
It's
How was
Barbie.
your
okay.
screening?
You're a
Congratulations.
noob. That was the best experience of
You'll
your life,
stop
huh?
crying soon.
It's
It's
gonna be
okay.
okay. The world's
Not soon.
It's
but-
better now.
The world's still spinning
You're
in the best
alright.
way.
Hey, I
We're here
love
for you. We love you.
Thanks for doing that.
We
for
all, and
me.
we all love each other.
Yeah,
so
your
proud of
makeup
you.
still looks
Wasn't
great.
it crazy how many people were in that movie theater
It's packed.
and just laughing out loud with strangers? When was the last time you did that in your life? Legitimately.
When was the last time you saw a comedy in theaters?
That was actually
True.
funny.
Yeah.
True.
That was
well,
actually
sing
fun.
two.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sing 2 is a dramedy.
Oh, this is
There,
right.
heard.
Sure. All right.
I was wondering, should we just each take a quadrant of this movie and each take like a minute and try to break this down?
Because the way we usually roll is that we open with sort of a recap of the movie, and we go through and we talk about the movie and have our little blurbs as we go, and then we close out, which I think would be a perfect segue with getting snacks.
I was going to say, do I get to take a snack break?
You can do a snack break.
Oh, you want to raid?
I know that you've transitioned
You
from
want to raid
theatrical
our
snacks into
mother's
slumber
pantry?
party snacks.
I mean,
is that
But this
okay?
is a movie slumber party.
This is a slumber party vibe, I thought.
Does she guard the pantry?
My mom's pretty fast and angry, so you're going to have to be pretty quick. Will's gotten good at it, but...
Okay, all right.
Parker, do you want to do the first quarter of Greta Gerwig's
Famously,
Barbie?
movies are split into quarters.
Yeah, this 4-act movie, Barbie.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
And please correct me as I go, because I've seen the movie twice, and you and I missed the first half because we're waiting to get everybody's food.
Yeah.
So
I've seen it 2.5 times.
I've seen it 1.5 times.
It begins the same way the Bible begins, you know.
Okay, so the movie opens with this really incredible homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Gloriously narrated by Helen Mirren, talking about how in the before times, all little girls had to play with were baby dolls. And that can be fun for a bit, until it's not. Go ask your mother, which is a really good joke.
A really good
There's
line.
a really good...
Actually, guys, we're going to just minute to minute.
Yeah, word for word
one.
is actually what
we're going to talk you through this. So you don't have to go see it.
And you know what? If we keep joking about it, I will do it because I'm pretty close to
I think
memory.
we've got it between the four of us.
I'm almost off book, so...
So we get this opening, and then in place of a monolith, we have Barbie in the classic black and white striped swimsuit, which is really great. And then we transition into Barbie Land proper with the understanding that Barbie's fixed everything. That Barbie as a concept, as an idea, as a toy, solved
all issues of equality and
feminism. Sexism and feminism and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So we then go into Barbie Land, and my favorite thing about this movie is how absolutely it commits in its production design. Like, we're living right now in... Well, we're not anymore. It's a post-Barbie world. Before Barbie, we were living in a world that was entirely being dominated by the use of green screen and, like,
the volume.
Lucasfilm's The Volume. Yeah. Like, this idea of, like, the projections behind you, which are well and good. Like, they serve their purpose in interesting ways. But it's just so nice to see sets in movies again. It's so nice to see real things in a movie.
This is maybe the one time we should mention it. We can all just, like, throw it out. But the Barbenheimer, them together, just showed that you can make $1 billion in one weekend if you just commit to filmmaking as a practical and loving craft.
Yeah, if you just make a good movie, it's also money.
Easy.
So.
But that's just, like, my favorite thing about Barbie Land, is it's real. It's so tactile, and yet it's so...
fake.
It's so artificial. It's so fake, but just in, like, the best way.
Something that Greta Gerwig talked a lot about in her Letterboxd interview, where she was talking about all the movies that inspired Barbie, was an authentic artificiality.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was a very good thing to hone in on, and I think she did it very wonderfully.
And specifically, right, in reference to the soundstage musicals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that was, or maybe it was Umbrellas that she said that, but it's all the same.
Sure.
Like this very studio system construction, because they're in sound stages.
Yeah, and you can tell, and it's great. Like, it's so great that you can tell that they're in sound stages, and I love it. So we meet our main Barbie, Margot Robbie, who is kind of off and on throughout the movie referred to as stereotypical Barbie. Like, that's how we differentiate her from the others.
What you imagine when you think of a Barbie. The platonic ideal of a Barbie.
Right. So we meet her, and she goes about her day, and I would love to hear specifically from, like, you two, having gone on all of your journeys with, like, you know, Mind Over Mattel, and Rio, specifically your experience, you know, growing up with these toys and playing with Barbies. Like, there's just, like, I have sisters, and so I I've engaged with Barbie, like, as a child, and, like, I played with Barbies, and I've done some of these things, but, like, there were just so many little things in, like, that whole opening of just, like, her floating down from the top of the house is just the equivalent of you just take the Barbie and you move her to the bottom of the house, right? And just, like, there's so many little things. Like, were there other things like that that you picked up on?
I'll say my one thing.
Yeah.
And then it's Rio time. But it's my favorite moment of the, like, going to see it in a movie theater experience is that the first... Oh, we got to get you to see the first half again.
Yeah.
Because consistently, the first laugh, that's a big audience laugh. Like, we're all in this together. Like, oh, I'm seeing a comedy in a movie theater. That first moment is always when she gets in the shower and turns on the shower and the water starts, but she doesn't do anything. And you hear audibly everyone in the theater go, oh, these are the rules.
Yeah.
Like, and this is funny, and I know this instantly, and no one explained it to me.
It is so fluent in the play experience.
And it's genius.
So
like, Greta Gerwig uses the language of film to get you on board with the whole concept so fast. Like, unbelievably fast.
You get it so quick.
It's why this movie isn't 3 hours long, because it's like, I'm actually just going to represent an authentic experience that a lot of people have a shared memory of. And now we can go so much deeper so fast. It's like, it's those comedy bits that make the entire movie work.
Absolutely. Put a pin in that, because I want to come back to that after we hear Rio's comments.
Yeah, I'll just kind of speed run some of my favorite things about Barbie Land that I think are really great. So obviously, one of my favorite things is the slide into the pool. And the fact that the pool is just flat plastic. And so, you know, there's like a grill placed on it at one point. You know, you can just put stuff on top of the pool because it's a sticker. And that's so awesome. But then you still can have the Dua Lipa mermaid, like, get, you know, because there is such a great use of imagination in the space. So it is very plastic. It is very artificial. It is very fluent in the rules you have to follow when you're playing with literal Barbies. But it also bends the rules in the way that a little girl would, you know?
Sure.
There is magic only in the sense that it facilitates easier play.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is when she opens her fridge. The main part of the fridge, there's things that you can pull in and out of it, but then there's just the sticker of everything on the side. I just loved all the use of stickers, because so much in a Barbie dream house and so much of your doll stuff is going to be just stickers. Like in her Barbie car, like her rear-facing mirror is also just a sticker with... It's really hard to make a sticker of a mirror, and somehow you have to do it a lot when you're in a girl's world, I guess. Right. There's a lot of mirrors. And then one of my favorite things that I haven't seen a ton of people talking about is Barbie's, her like dream bed, and the ceiling opens up so you can zoom in and you can see her in her bed, in her little heart-shaped bed, and it has a flimsy little sparkly blanket. It's so perfect. And on her nightstands, she has these lamps that are like kind of almost a holographic plastic.
Yeah.
And I really love that, because in like every single Barbie and honestly every single like 4 girls toy from the pink aisle, you have your Barbie doll, and that is like the high quality doll. And she sometimes has an accessory like a brush and things. And then there's always like terrible little bad accessories that like you get water on them and they dissolve. You know, there's like, so I talked about this earlier. I got a Top Gun military Barbie, and she's so sick, everything she wears. And then it comes with like her map, and it's a little like cereal box cut out. And so she's got these lamps that are really just like the cellophane lamps that you just kind of throw in as set dressing on a Barbie dream house. And so you're paying like $99.99 for this Barbie dream house. Yep. And there are going to be things that get thrown away with the little twisty wires. And I really loved that. You know, it just was so acknowledging of Barbie is so beautiful and so cool, and also a privilege. You know, like Barbies are not cheap. Lots of people have not got Barbies. And yet she's not so high class. She's not very well designed entirely. Sure. Some of it is going to be a cop-out, which I think speaks volumes of the movie, too.
She represents...
Not the movie being a cop-out, but what the movie's message is. Right. Explain it in a nice way.
Well, no, she, like, represents an upper middle class that feels universally attainable, but isn't. But like we were looking at the first Barbie dream house. There's a great Architectural Digest video, I think, of this lady who is a Barbie dream house architect scholar. And the first Barbie dream house is like a square room with a sofa on it and a record player and all of her cool college stuff. It is like, it's just a house that like a woman could quote unquote and reasonably expect to buy.
So it is interesting because I really like it because it's like such this ideal. And then also, even in Barbie Land, they kind of acknowledge that like, it's not all that high quality, honestly, but it is just like made to be so wonderful and dreamlike and capitalist, you know?
Yeah.
It's the
so
beginning.
I really like that.
It's the beginning of the thesis, which is like Barbie is representing the bare minimum and
everything you could ever want.
Everything you could never ever have.
Yeah.
Like so completely inaccessible and unrealistic and so cheap and silly at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say the two factoids that I feel like you legally have to say for the set design, which is that there was a national, perhaps global, shortage of pink paint when they were constructing the set of this movie. They used all of the pink paint that had been made. And everything...
I've been trying to paint my bathroom for like 3 months and I haven't been able to.
You can't do it. And everything is scaled down 23%. Everything is 23% smaller than it should be.
Oh, because you get a doll and it barely fits in the dream house, you know?
The doll proportions are not right. And so the set designers determined that 23% was the exact ratio.
Yeah. Which is just super cool.
Yeah.
I think this is a good structure of like we'll give our thoughts on like the Barbie world, we'll give our thoughts on the real world, and we'll just keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
So Max, while we're here in Barbie Land, like is there anything like is there stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there like elements that stood out to you especially?
I mean, I feel like y'all did a good job of covering like a lot of the specifics. Again, I've only seen this movie once. You all have more experience in Barbie Land than I do.
Oh, I also have a question.
Yes.
What are your guys' experience? Because Will and I have talked a lot about our experience with Barbie growing up. And you had sisters. Is that kind of the extent of your experience with Barbie?
I mean, a little bit. Like so that was my entry to Barbie.
Yeah.
Is that I have an older sister and a younger sister, bridged on both sides by like 3 years, and so.
And I know you've seen the Preminger movie.
Yeah, I've seen. So... I watched a lot of the movies probably up to like. Maybe 2010, 2011. Okay. So I've seen
ones.
Yeah, I've seen the texts.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with like the core Bible of Barbie cinema. But like my experience with Barbie was specifically those movies, but then also like playing with my sister's toys. Having some bleed over with like the Toy Story movies a little bit, like specifically like Jodie Benson's Barbie in those.
Sorry, I can't stop picturing Florence Pugh leaning over Cillian Murphy and being like, "What's this?" And it's his VHS copy of Barbie and the Nutcracker. He's like, "Read it."
And he just reads the back.
I have become Mouse King, destroyer of.
So that's kind of my experience with Barbie.
Max,
what is your experience with Barbie, and then what you thought of Barbie?
Okay,
world?
And then that'll bring us back into Barbie Land.
Yeah.
Because that is a good thing to know before I talk about my experience in Barbie Land. Is basically I have one sister who's 3.5 years older than me, but she didn't play with a ton of Barbies. The Barbies that she had growing up that I can remember. Is there was one who had a pink Volkswagen, like new Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh, so she lived my dream.
Yeah, but that was it. We didn't have like a house for or anything.
Wait, just the car? There was a Barbie in it.
There was a Barbie.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. There was a Barbie in a car, and that's all I really remember of that. But then we had the computer game for Princess and the Pauper, which I played the hell out of.
Absolutely.
There was a cookie decorating minigame. There was a horse riding minigame. The castle was there, and you could click around it. And then also we had the doll of blonde
Annalise?
Yes.
You had Annalise?
Yeah, and she sang the song when you press the button. She sang her half of the song.
I'm just like you.
Yep.
Is that
and then just
nothing.
Yeah, and she would go
we
into
take
like
responsibility. Does she not sing half of the song?
I will.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
will trade you. I will trade you Rapunzel right now for that.
I'll have to talk to my sister about
That's
that.
not true. I was
I think
kidding.
we still have her, but the song sounds worse.
What is your address off the record?
I'll let you know later. Off the record.
You're just like, we take...
It's not that. She sings the song, but there isn't like two voices harmonizing or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think toy designers
doll.
would have known they would have been
The alto
condemning
doll.
parents to like Barbie purgatory if you had dolls that sang in the round and you'd have to sync them up exactly right at the same time.
You have to get two. Yeah, that's
so you
really...
have to have at least
Anyway.
a friend.
Okay, you've
But I
played around.
But I didn't remember watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I only remembered the computer game and the doll. And then in 2021, I went to my ex-partner's house, like her family's house, and I think these are the only two movies we ever watched together. No, we also watched another movie. But these were two of the three movies we watched, two Barbie movies.
Tell me all three of the movies.
Well, one of them was The Scarlet Pimpernel, which is good.
Okay.
You know, the
Good
Ian McKellen one.
movie.
Good movie.
Solid.
The second one was Princess and the Pauper, which we watched.
Yes,
Which
love.
Good movie.
Good movie! And also I Love
Did you
Your...
know there's also a Barbie the Pink Pimpernel?
No.
We'll get there.
That's not true.
Oh. That's not true?
Not
That was
yet.
Like
so
it?
mean. That
Not
was
yet.
really
That was
mean.
really mean.
I got excited too.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
Will was like, we'll get there. And now we never will.
No, we never will.
Anyway.
Anyway, and then we watched Starlight Adventure, or whatever. It was a space one from
Oh,
2016.
yeah.
I've
So
never
when you
seen
get to that
The
one,
one where
can I
Barbie
come on the
saves the
show?
galaxy.
Can I come on the show?
I've never seen
To
that
do
talk
one.
about that
Barbie
one?
Starlight.
Yeah, you
Let's
should.
talk about it.
Oh my gosh. I've
And
never
it's
seen
like
It's...
direct
Is it good?
relationship.
But it's worth a
it's
watch. It's bad. But we'll watch it and I'll come on the show and I'll talk about it. Anyway,
Okay.
so that's my experience with Barbie. And then obviously the Toy Story movies.
Of course. Which is
Uh,
great
Which
representation
is great
of Barbie.
representation of Barbie.
It's really
It's
good
got
Barbie
the
stuff.
pink aisle, which I think is so quintessential.
The
Yeah.
pink aisle's so good
Yeah.
in that movie.
And
Yeah.
then what'd you think of Barbie World?
Oh, in the movie.
Yeah.
I was
Barbie
like, I
Land.
haven't been to Barbie Land.
Yeah, Barbie World
Warner
is
Brothers, get on that though.
When?
is the
Um,
the Super Nintendo sequel or whatever.
Barbie World. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, coming into this movie, that was my experience. Also, just in the lead up, I've just been very excited about this. So I was very excited, and when I watched it, I was like, oh.
Since Wednesday?
Since what? Yeah. Yeah, you got me. No, I've been excited before I listened to your podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my one thing is that I do really love that Helen Mirren, or that they like carry her down. I question the
That
necessity of
Helen
Helen
Mirren
Mirren
carries her
saying,
down.
the Helen Mirren
Mirren's
says, and of
playing with-
course,
Yeah.
you
That
always
was-
have, and I was like, you don't have to handhold us
I
through
think that
this.
was the latest addition to the film
I think it
after the
was.
trailer when everybody's
After,
like,
everyone
why
freaked
does
out at the
Barbie
trailer.
fly?
Yeah. I felt
Oh, I
like it
bet
was
it
maybe
was.
put in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
Because
I bet
I
Greta
was like,
just. It
because
was.
there's no more of that hand-holding for the rest of the movie.
No.
Well, and if you listen to Lizzo's "In Pink" song, there's
Yeah.
more of the music, but it gets faded out.
It
so
was
that
a
Helen Mirren can say
studio-
that thing. I
Oh,
think.
It was
I
a
think they were like,
studio
"Oh shoot,
note.
we got to tell them what."
It was
we
the
have to
like
tell 'em.
chief marketing
They didn't
officer.
trust us.
All he
Yeah.
saw, all he ever sees is just YouTube comments, and
See,
he's like,
that's-
"You gotta get
He
Helen
thinks
on the
You gotta tell us. I
phone.
don't know what's
You
You
happening.
gotta, you
Barbie
have to, or
flies.
we're pulling the whole
See,
thing."
and unironically, like, that is very interesting because having watched this 1.5 times, I completely forgot that line was in there.
Yeah.
Because I'm so, like, the movie does such a good job of selling you the rules so quickly. I forgot that she even said that.
But that's what I'm saying is that the rest of the movie and everything in Barbie Land does such a good job of like not holding your hand.
You're
through it
already
and just
there. You
visually
already get
showing
it.
you. You get it. We don't need that line.
Right.
And I'm
You have
sure
to
the
wonder,
filmmakers
like-
felt the
They
same
did
way.
to-
Yeah.
What moron
Studio
is
thought
this
they
for?
did.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's really the
But
question.
that is something that I really liked about it is that there's no like, in fact they do. We'll get into that. But like there's no, other than that line, there's no like further comments of like, oh, by the way, this is what
She
Barbie
doesn't have
Right.
to control the car because
Yeah.
it's filled with batteries. And
Yeah,
she can
and,
play
like,
with both hands. Yeah.
The pool is a sticker, but later when the mermaid comes out, don't be confused because it's like when you play with dolls. Like there's no
Yeah.
more of that. And also they put way more time into explaining the complex physics of Barbie Land and the real world
Mm-hmm.
as we get
And the
into the
twin
story.
crossing.
Like
Yeah.
and I was not expecting there to be like complex, like not even complex, but just like the surface of a complex physics between the real world and Barbie world.
They
I didn't know
they
there were so
address
many
it-
automobiles you could use. Period.
They
Yeah.
address it in a really like lots of meta ways throughout, but they stop with the rules of like, this is you playing Barbie as a kid.
Yeah.
They stop at exactly the moment where it would have stopped being fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
And it's like, and Barbie can't bend her elbows, and she doesn't have thumbs, and everyone's spray painted plastic. Like, they could have gone harder, and it would have been not fun to watch.
In screen tests, tried like paddle hands on everybody.
Really?
Like you couldn't. But here's some tea. Dua Lipa couldn't do it. They didn't really. Greta, I don't think really wanted to do it, but the studio wanted them to try it. But Dua Lipa kept bending her pinky finger.
Greta paid Dua Lipa
just had
$20,000 to just bend.
Pretend you can't bend her. Just pretend you.
Apparently, Kate McKinnon was the best at it, though.
I believe
I've
it.
heard.
What else stood out to you, Max?
Well, I just feel like I don't have a lot more to say about Barbie Land specifically, other than that it was a wonderful time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved everyone there. And I liked that the ambulance opened up into a doctor's office.
That's a good
That was
moment.
a playset that I was like, I would play that.
Gasps at that moment all the time.
I was so surprised.
I think you do have to contextualize
Why
your relationship with Barbie first. Like, did you play with Barbies before we go to Barbie Land? Because it's what we were talking about earlier of like, that's what sets up the whole movie. It's Greta Gerwig, like, going into your brain and finding that memory and pulling it out so you can be in the right space. You have to remember playing with a Barbie doll in order to understand this movie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
For like the maximum effectiveness of the message and the ending of the movie, like this is a movie that is designed for everyone. And the marketing I really liked. There were like that final trailer was like, if you love Barbie, this movie is for you. If you hate Barbie, this movie is for you. Like, I thought that was really great marketing. Really smart. And, like, I completely agree that this movie is designed to be accessible to anybody, but in the same way that, like, other films are going to benefit you from having context of your own bringing in, this absolutely, like, the best, fullest version of your interpretation of this movie is if you had some sort of experience playing with Barbies growing up.
Right.
And like you're saying, Will, like...
And everyone does.
Right.
Everyone does. Even if your way of playing with Barbie was taking your sister's friend's Barbie and throwing it in the dirt and saying, I hate Barbie, Barbie's ugly. Like, that is the exact same conditioning and like social structure of play that every boy has a relationship with Barbie. Every boy has to decide, does he love Barbie? Does he hate Barbie? Mm-hmm. Like, has a strong relationship with Barbie. It's even in a play context, Barbie will come into play, and then you have to, like, I think the movie gets into that as well. Max, did you have a perfectly neutral Barbie experience? Yeah.
I didn't hate Barbie. I didn't play. I played with my sister's other toys. I played with My Little Ponies and Little's Pet Shops.
Oh, Little's Pet Shops.
But I never played
Little's Pet Shop
Barbie.
Maybe when.
But I didn't, like, want to tear her up or anything. Cut her hair.
You weren't just Sid from Toy Story?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Although at one point my sister and her friend did do that to the Barbies.
Do you guys want to hear a secret? Right before we went and saw Barbie, I had like a panic attack in the shower because I was so excited and so nervous. And I realized I'd never cut the hair off of any doll. And so if you direct your attention to Julie, I cut her hair before we went to the Barbie movie, and that was really fun.
I saw so much doll hair in the garbage can, and I was like, I can't ask about this. Something happened.
Something occurred.
Yeah.
Parker, do you want to continue us? Or
yeah, no.
I don't have a lot to say
talk
about
the disco
song. No, we're getting there. We're getting there. So,
okay.
Apologies to listeners. We probably should have prefaced by like doing what's our experience with Barbie. It got seated in the middle, but now it's all out of the way and we can keep moving forward.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff.
Well, everybody pause. Take a minute to think about what your experience with Barbie is.
And now, tell us about that.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That's disgusting.
Ew.
Pervert.
What?
I'm sorry you had to experience that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah.
If it... Oh, I get it.
Honestly,
okay, I get it. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
That's girly.
I get it.
We're a little too...
No, I mean, you were 6. So.
Yeah, I think you jumped the gun there a little bit.
You were ahead of your time with that one, though.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's not over hype.
Okay, well, I don't want to hear anymore.
Parker, go.
Okay, so this whole opening sequence, we've got all this stuff in Barbie Land. We meet Ken and the other Kens at the beach. Our main Ken being Ryan Gosling, giving the performance of his career, in my opinion.
Career defining.
We also meet Alan as an aside. Alan, there is no multiples of Alan. There's just one. And it's Michael Cera, and he's wonderful.
He's great.
And we establish, what's important to know is that we establish the dynamics going on in Barbie Land, which is that the Barbies run everything. They do everything. Mm-hmm. And the Kens, like the marketing told us, are just Ken. Mm-hmm. They're just there. They hang out. And specifically Ryan Gosling's Ken is enamored with Margot Robbie's Barbie in the sense that there's a specific phrase the movie uses, and I'm going to paraphrase it slightly. So if you remember, either of you remember specifically, help me out. But
I'm almost off book. So.
Yeah, exactly. Help me out.
Rio, do you want to say it?
He says something along the lines of like, he only exists like in the glow of her gaze.
Yes.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Where it is, okay, I only exist if you're looking at me, if you acknowledge me.
The introductory line to Ken is every day's a good day for Barbie. And the only day, like, it's only a good day for Ken when Barbie looks at him.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And so we established that very quickly. Mm-hmm. Of, okay, this is the dynamic not only of the broader Kens and Barbies generally, but specifically of these two main, Barbie and Ken, that we're following. Mm-hmm. He makes some big show of trying to impress her.
Bounces off
the wave. Gets in a fight with another Ken. And then everything's calmed down. He asks what she's doing later, if he could come over later. And she says, yeah, sure, I'm not doing much. Just a huge blowout party with all the Barbies and all the Kens with bespoke music and bespoke song. You should come by.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's so cool. So then,
so cool.
Rio, we get to the disco scene, which is lovely.
Gorgeous.
It's so pretty to look at. And I don't have it on call right now, unfortunately, but like, I just want to shout out the work of the costume designer in this film, because it's incredible work. It's
Margot Robbie's hair
good
here is a dream.
Yeah.
It's the best wig in the whole movie.
It is a doll. It is and
amazing.
The choreography is so good. It is so engaging. It is, because I think we haven't thought about this in a while, because there just isn't like a lot of choreography in movies that are like, this is a dance number. You know, I can think of like La La Land and stuff, but
West Side Story,
yeah. Like
Heights.
Choreography.
I just keep
shut
listening.
Up. Well, do you know what I mean? I guess I mean like,
no, total. I see what you're saying. Sorry,
choreography that is made to be seen on film.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's really good, and I that's all I have to say. Well, as somebody who has temporarily been in and out of being a wheelchair user, the wheelchair choreography is really, really good.
I cried like a baby.
It's really, really good.
That's really
great. It's not just like, we have a girl in a wheelchair, we have a wheelchair Barbie, and she's in the dance number, and she gets to do all the upper body stuff. It's like wheelchair choreography, and everybody frames that. And, so I don't know. Barbies are not diverse and not perfectly, representing every kind of human and girl and woman. But there were some really great nods in this movie that I've never seen in any other movies before.
Because it's the problem and the good thing with Barbie. This is what the whole movie's about. It's amazing. But like, what do you think? She's a great representation. What do you think that Barbie's name is? Probably Wheelchair Barbie.
Yeah, is it?
Like, or that's how people would refer to that Barbie.
That's certainly how it would be marketed, like, on a box.
Right. On a box, or to a kid, or like how a kid would explain that Barbie to their friend.
Yeah.
Of like, I got Wheelchair Barbie.
I got Wheelchair Barbie.
And you're like, you're a person who uses a wheelchair sometimes, but that character isn't Wheelchair Barbie. Mm-hmm. That is like a girl crushing it on the dance floor. And like, that's... It's great representation in that way, but it's weird because that Barbie probably ended up in Barbie Land because either someone wanted their daughter to feel represented, or someone wanted to make money off of disabled people.
It probably happened right after the Americans with Disabilities Act,
Like it's Barbie is both of those things.
Barbie.
And that's kind of the theme of the movie.
And inclusivity law passes and they're like, we really gotta get a Barbie on this. Yeah.
And so you're so quickly engaging with
Yeah.
The disco is like,
I shouldn't kick that.
here's all of the best things about Barbie, up front, unapologetic.
So fun.
And then it sets up these questions of like, I can find something that sucks about a lot of this, and it almost starts to feel like it's not gonna address. It lets you go just long enough in the lie that Barbie is the best thing that ever happened before I think any sensible person would start to feel repulsed.
That's a good observation. I think it was a very good point.
And I think a lot of that will be Will's quarter, I think, as well. So I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah.
Take us out of the dance.
Yeah. So the dance transitions out, and our inciting incident of the movie is middle of the dance. Everything's great. Everybody, like, literally, I think the line before that is the Barbies going, this is the best day ever, and so was yesterday, and so is tomorrow, and so is every day for the rest of forever. And they all cheer. And in the middle of the cheering, Margot Robbie goes, you guys ever think about dying? And it's just, everything stops. And people are mortified. All the Barbies, all the Kens cannot believe what they've just heard. She saves face about dying to get back on the dance floor, and everything resumes. Nobody cares. But you can see that she's clearly shaken by what's just happened. The next morning...
one of her greatest acting moments, where she's like, I don't know why I said that. Of like, you get to see so early too Margot Robbie play.
She does a really good job in this movie.
An intense emotional trauma, like, honestly, right in that moment, and you snap out.
She plays on the brink of tears.
Because she's not like, oof.
So well. Because she can't cry. She's a Barbie. She doesn't know how to cry yet. And
it's like a jarring acting moment.
It's just like, it's horror. It's like actual
real
dread
horror.
on her of like, I don't know what that was, and I'm very uneasy about it. Like, it's a really solid
and I'm not
moment.
safe talking to anybody about this either,
Right.
which is like the scariest thing to feel.
Totally. So she wakes up the next morning, we get an inverse of the opening montage where nothing seems to be going her way. All of the things that were magical and perfect.
Lizzo still sounds great, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Lizzo sounds great.
Lizzo sounds fantastic.
Barbie is behind in the song. Like, she's not lining up with the lyrics properly like she was before. Her waterless shower is cold, which is a really
funny.
It's a really good joke. The milk is expired. She flips it around. It's just got the sticker on it. It's really good. All this stuff is happening. And she goes back to the beach like she does every day, and she confides in the other Barbies, or attempts to, right? That thing of, I can't talk to anybody about this, but maybe I can. Maybe I can broach this with my friends. And so she tells them, hey, I woke up this morning and my heels hit the floor.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, well, it can't be that bad. Like, it's again, they show her and they all freak out about flat feet. And they tell her, okay, you need to go see Weird Barbie. And Weird Barbie, again, this movie does such a good job of engaging with every part of the spectrum of your engagement with Barbie, of a child's enjoyment and use of a Barbie doll, and specifically the idea of Weird Barbie being the Barbie that just got mutilated by a child. Hair was cut, Sharpie out to the face, burning the ends of the hair, just like, you could argue loved to death, maybe?
Played with too hard.
Hard.
Which I have a question about that, boyos. Are there any toys for boys that it's really easy to play with them too hard?
You know the plot of the Lego movie?
Yeah.
That was my experience, where my dad would glue all of my
Gluing
Legos
the Legos together. I thought it was a pretty
and
good
I kind
parallel.
of hated that.
Yeah.
Because I liked having my Star Wars ships explode each other. That was like an appeal of Lego. But it was also me destroying the toy, because I would lose all of the pieces.
Because even like our Rapunzel doll is in pretty good condition, but she's been played with too hard because her hair isn't good anymore. Kind of playing with a Barbie at all is almost playing with her too hard.
My version of that is joints and bionicles snapping, so that the like socket doesn't connect to the ball anymore.
Mine would be I had Star Wars action figures that if you squeeze the legs together, the torso would move, so that you could do a lightsaber fight with them. And eventually,
they could do the twist.
Yeah,
twist and turn, Anakin
and turn,
Skywalker.
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah, he was busting it down. But that mechanism would eventually go out, and then the lightsabers would eventually like break or bend because they're just really thin, soft plastic. So yeah, I had toys like that.
Weird Barbie's different though,
But
because
Barbie...
it implies an intentional destruction.
Well,
Right.
it's a toy that is fun to destroy.
She's still fully functional as a doll, though, which I think. But she's
that's
broken, but she's still completely functional as a doll.
Right.
Max, you just cracked it open for me. Weird Barbie is this really spectacular inclusion of some degree of like addressing queer representation in the Barbie world, which isn't where this movie goes like explicitly, and it's not what it's about, but you can't have conversations about feminism and exclude gender non-conforming people.
Mm-hmm.
And Weird Barbie is this stand-in. It's hard, there's no specific, but she's gender non-conforming. Like she's not like the other Barbies. Yeah,
I want to say, and I don't want to say this to take Alan from all of the men in my life who have confided in me that we are all Alan.
Yeah.
But I've
Alan.
seen people interpreting Alan also as a queer or non-binary like person in Barbie Land, because if you look at it, there is a binary of Kens and Barbies, and the people outside of that are Weird Barbie, Alan, and those
Sugar
are like
Daddy
the two
Ken.
outsiders.
Yeah.
Sugar Daddy
Magic Ken with the magic earring
Yeah.
is like the
They
explicitly
don't fit the
gay.
gender of
Right,
Barbie and Ken.
they don't fit this. And then there's all, I think that is an interesting
That is
thing
really
to look
but-
at. And I have more to say on Alan later.
You said something. What did you say? You said something about how it's almost a toy that's designed to be Sharpied on and cut the hair and be turned into a weird Barbie.
Yeah.
Like at least one Barbie exists for that. That's an allowed style of play, which is such an interesting way to teach audiences about like gender as a performance and as a construct, and like why, if gender doesn't exist, why doesn't everybody just like check out of gender? But it's like, no, like there's room for everybody, but this structure exists, so, and some people are going to play with it. It is an intentional style of play to explore gender outside of the binary.
And
Totally.
Weird Barbie's the only one that expresses any sort of sexuality, too.
That is true.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Weird Barbie.
And it is a heterosexual sexuality kind of expressed, but...
Well, it's interesting
She's
too,
into the
because
blob.
like, don't want to jump the gun too much, and I don't want to, spoil anything, so I'll keep it in vague terms as we get later. But it's very interesting hearing you guys talk about that, because I saw somebody talking about that same idea in the context of there's a shift that happens in Barbie Land later in the movie, which we will get to. And it's interesting that when that shift happens, Weird Barbie becomes butch commando lesbian guerrilla warfare,
angry feminist archetype Barbie,
in context of the thing that she is fighting against, which we will get to later. And I just thought that was a very interesting observation. It's like, when this thing happens, the response is she becomes the thing that group of people would fear the most.
Yeah, she becomes everything Ben Shapiro lays awake at night, shaking in his bed, thinking about.
Yeah, which is just very interesting.
Quivering in his sheets.
So, Margot Robbie, Barbie, goes to visit Weird Barbie. And specifically because Weird Barbie has experience with these things and with the idea of, like, the real world. And so she shows her flat feet, and she says, oh, well, have you been thinking about, like, death? Like, have you had existential thoughts? And she's like, oh, yeah. She's like, okay, yeah. Then whoever is playing with you, your child, is going through something and is now projecting that onto you, and you're feeling it, which is such... Again, this is, 25 minutes into the movie?
Yep.
Maybe? Like, and we're getting into such heady concepts.
Well, and this is what I was talking about earlier with, like putting your kind of exposition tokens not into explaining how playing with Barbie works, but into using terms like the space-time continuum, the fabric of Barbie reality. Like, you have to go through this portal to, like, save reality. And it's like, that's where you'd spend your exposition tokens and just let people understand how Barbie works, because we do.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
But this is new, right? This is new stuff for all of us.
Yeah.
And instead of making us wonder for like an hour and a half, like, is this what the movie's going to be? Is it going to address all these complicated things I feel about Barbie and answer those questions? It tells you this is what the movie's going to be in the first 25 minutes. It's like such a gift. It's such a relief when that moment comes of like, we're doing it. We're going to talk about this.
I know where we're going. I know what we're doing.
Because there is this kind of like, watching it the first time, and I trust it. Obviously, I trust Greta Gerwig. I trust the company. I trust the crew. But there was part of me that was like, so far this is feeling like a really great ad for Barbie. Of like, yeah, it's, it's very, all these things. And I was like, I wonder if they will like address like some of like the more like complicated aspects of like this doll's 60-year legacy. And then immediately I was like, oh no, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Oh, okay.
That's what the entire movie is about.
Oh, great.
Right. If you're Greta Gerwig and you get handed Barbie, you have to ask yourself, like, what is the core conflict of this? And I bet she just picked up some Barbie dolls and tried to come up with the most interesting story and couldn't stopping playing to just be like, man, Barbie's so weird. Why am I like... why do I feel drawn to like immediately go into like domestic play? Like, why is that where, but also Barbie's an astronaut. You're right. She's not like, she's not a bad stereotype. She's in the moon, but it's
like that.
Oh, well, she was white, for this amount of time. Like, and at some point Greta had the idea, and I wish you could just see this moment of like, oh, that's the core conflict of this movie structurally. Right. Like, that is what these characters are directly battling against. Which is the only way to make this movie.
Right. So Weird Barbie tells Margot Robbie that she needs to, and I'm just going to keep calling her Margot Robbie because there's too many Barbies.
Too many Barbies.
She tells her that she needs to go to the real world to, again, like, reality is at stake. And there's a really beautiful moment. And I keep, like, this visual has been on my mind since I've seen the movie, and I can't stop thinking about it in context of this, is when Weird Barbie is explaining this concept. She pulls down a diagram, and there is, like, stick figures of a large, like, female-looking person and then a smaller one. Like, I can't even remember. Do they have, like, the skirts, or is it just
They're, like,
stick
triangles.
Figures? They're little triangles, right.
Yeah.
And so Weird Barbie is using this as an example of, okay, this is the relationship between child and doll. This is it, right? And there's a shot from the other side of that diagram where there is the stick figure's face and Margot Robbie's face from behind it with like the light coming through. And I think about that shot and I think about that diagram so much in the context of this movie because it is doing so many different things at so many different times. And specifically the one that I think is the most relevant to the rest of the movie that we'll be talking about is not only are we exploring the dynamic between girlhood and Barbie, we are exploring, you could use that exact same diagram, and the movie does, to express the relationship between mothers and daughters. Like, that visual metaphor is put there very specifically, very intentionally, and is later played out all the way through to like the second to final scene of the movie. The emotional climax of the film is about that dynamic, and I'm obsessed with it. I can't stop thinking about it. I just think it's great. So Barbie tries to refuse the call, but she says, no, you have to find out. You have to know. And so she goes, and the Barbies throw her a going away party because there's some in there. There's a joke about like she is developing cellulite on her leg, and she's like, "What is that?"
She's becoming more human. There's like a problem.
That's a problem, and so they send her this big going away party with saying, "Hey, like token cellulite, yay!" And they ship her off, and she goes off in her car.
I love that too because cellulite was made up by men. You know?
Yeah.
So it's
good stuff.
We love it.
You guys love
We can't get enough. That's why we invented it. Yeah.
And so she drives out of Barbie Land and she's being given an instruction manual of all of these different modes of transport she has to take in the order she has to take them to transition out of Barbie Land into the real world. Driving along, finds out that Ryan Gosling's Ken has stowed away in the back of her car. He's coming with her, make sure that she's going to be okay.
More to impress other Kens.
But yeah, it's to impress other Kens is why Ryan Gosling goes on this trip, is because he's like, well, I bet she wouldn't even let you go. He's like, no, she'd let me go. Like, I could totally go.
She asked me. I didn't even want to, though.
It wasn't a big deal. I didn't even want to go. And so, to prove them wrong, again, establishing the dynamic very early. Yes. Rhea.
So much of Ken's whole deal is established pretty early that one of his big desires is to be able to reject Barbie before she can reject him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when he is told to leave for girls' night, he's like, I'd love to stay, but I can't. After she's already completely left him.
Yeah, he
fantasizes about being able to reject her before she can reject him.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's an important part that I missed
That's
of
funny.
her saying, hey, you can't.
Yeah.
It's a girl's night.
She just fully blows off Ken, like, is not interested in him at all, and doesn't really like having him around.
No, not at all. So I think that is my fourth. They are in the car. They are traveling to the real world.
Yeah, they sure are. And then they get to the real world after an incredible sequence of practical, like, very stylized travel.
I saw some behind the scenes of how they did this.
So, like, spinning.
It's literally, they've got, like, the fake car on a platform, and in front of that is, like, a conveyor belt with tumbleweeds and painted sagebrush and cacti. And behind them is 3 layers of background moving at different speeds behind them. It's the coolest thing I've ever looked at.
It's really great. So, we get into the real world. Eventually, they end up just roller skating their way onto Venice Beach in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And this is the next moment where it's my favorite thing that movies do when you have the moment of, oh, this is what the movie is. Mm-hmm. That's the most satisfying experience. And you get another one of those you get like 20 of those in this movie. But this one is, oh, we just spent all of Parker's quarter, as they called it during production. We spent all of Parker's quarter setting up this, like, entirely female-driven society, if the matriarchy is being shown to us. And then we see Barbie and Ken, who've only known the matriarchy, be fully exposed to the patriarchy.
The matriarchy as imagined by men, right? Because it is a capitalist doll world. Sure. So anyway, just want to edit that. I think the matriarchy would look a little bit different.
Yes, because it is the matriarchy as men imagine it, which is the patriarchy, but starting with an M, and girls do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like, so there's like a Supreme Court, there's a White House.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pink house and a Supreme Court. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what the matriarchy is. So, well, and, like, I would rather live in Barbie Land. But, like, it's not exactly the patriarchy. But it gets into that. So, we see Ken immediately realize that he's Ryan Gosling in this world, and Margot Robbie realized that she's Margot Robbie in this world, which means there's this really immediate and terrifying danger that becomes so present so quickly in the movie, where Greta does it again, of, like, this very quick montage of Margot Robbie getting casually to maliciously, like, sexually assaulted on the street. Yeah. Like, men being horrible to her in public.
Also, like, the thing, like, the catcalls they're saying are, like, pretty explicit. Like, it's not even, like...
It's not movie catcalls.
Yeah, it's not just like, hey...
It is like, oh, a beautiful woman, you're a sex object to me.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It is that, like, almost that direct, right? And then you get an instance of 2 very gay-coded men saying almost the same thing to Ken, and he loves it. It is like, oh, I get to be sexualized here? We sexualize people here? Because they're from, right, the least sexual. Barbie Land is fully desexualized.
Which also leads to Barbie saying, because again, it would have been so easy for them to just be like, I don't know what you mean. But Barbie being like, I'm sensing that you are using a double entendre, and I feel I need to let you know that I don't have genitals. Neither of us have genitals.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, and
that's so funny.
Like, hey,
that joke is wild.
So funny.
That's okay.
So funny.
After they say horrible
stuff, but it's just that punchline.
And this is such an interesting quadrant of the movie, because the movie is about both and. That Barbie is great and Barbie is terrible, and being a woman is great and being a woman is terrible. And it's about how both of those are true at the same time. And the Barbie Land sequence just shows you what's great. And the real world sequence just shows you the both and. Where, like, it is a really almost jarring, but it works perfectly, jump between a really funny joke and a really horrific thing happening to Margot Robbie. Mm-hmm. Where it is like, oh, haha, they don't know what money is. They just stole these cowboy costumes, and then they get arrested, and it's a jump cut to her being held by multiple men while being openly and directly sexualized to her face. Like, this really scary...
She's being arrested.
While she's being fingerprinted. Like, a very powerless situation.
Which, if you didn't want to get kidnapped, you shouldn't have gone ice skating. If you didn't want to get ogled by the police officers, you shouldn't have I don't know. Yeah. That was, like, a thing
it's
that
those,
I really
like, scary girl rules that you learn in those Barbie movies. And
like, it is her fault because she's wearing a neon rollerblading outfit, you know?
But the movie does not grind to this cynical halt.
Yeah.
It is so fast-paced, and it's so funny, and it's still so visually engaging, and it's still so taking us on this adventure. And we're also watching Ken, in a very funny way, discover the patriarchy on his own, of, like, finding out that every president who's ever lived was a man. And like, all of the, you know, Supreme Court justices forever, and all the money, and all the people with power and jobs and success.
All the movie
I think
stars.
something also that's really fun about that is, like, obviously when he's out just on the street, he's kind of getting that. But then he walks into patriarchy, the store, masculinity, the business.
Century City.
Toxic masculinity, the business.
Men.
Yeah, like, it's not even that they're saying, like, being in the real world alone would make Ken into this. It's like going to where all of that is concentrated the most.
Yeah.
And, like, showcase to him of, like, look at how great being a man is. There's horses. And he really latches onto that.
So this is where we get introduced to this, like, really... You know what? I'll go off on this for a while. You say what you're going to say.
No, just I find this whole, like, B-plot to be so interesting, and people have been talking about it, like, infinitely online since the movie came out, and like dissecting it, and like everybody has such good, great thoughts about all of this. And specifically this idea that, like, I've been thinking about a ton of what you're describing, of seeing Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling realize that they are Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling in this world, when they come from a world of toys. They come from a world of children's playthings, which makes them intellectually children.
Hold on. Max, can you yell, "You are a toy"?
No.
Okay.
I would love to yes and you will, but it would not do well for the audience.
But I think you're so right. Like, I really don't like it when adults play children. And I think Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling do the best job of playing a child brain. Right. You know, like, it's so good.
So that specific idea of, if you are viewing them as having child brains, something I've just been thinking about so much is this movie. We're going to get into this more later, I'm sure. Anybody who says this movie hates men doesn't know what they're talking about.
It's true.
Like, there's just I can't look you in the eye and take you seriously if you say that, because this movie is commenting specifically in this scene. This movie is looking at how insidious the idea of toxic masculinity and the patriarchy is to boys, to young children, and how you just latch onto these things. And it's not boys and men are not born with these ideas. They are not born being aggressive and hostile, and
there's fireworks going off outside while Parker's doing his speech.
Yeah, they're really backing me up here. But just this idea of no boy is inherently this way. You have to be taught. You have to be taught about patriarchy, the store.
Ken goes to the library to learn how to experience patriarchy.
And not the library.
The
junior high
library.
Where kids go to learn things.
Yes.
Right.
And that's where he learns about the patriarchy.
Exactly.
Which is like a part of, it's the inverse of the coin of like, everyone has a relationship with Barbie. Because everyone has a relationship with women as an idea. Barbie equals the idea of woman in America. Mm-hmm. That's the line that this movie's drawing constantly. And Ken does not equal the idea of a man in America.
No.
But he is a boy who is being struggling against that in the very early stages. And gets out of it. He never gets converted. We do see those guys who are fully the idea of man in America. We're about to get to them.
Anyway, that's all I had to say.
It's beautiful. I was fully expecting to watch and be deeply, deeply moved by Greta Gerwig's generosity and humanity in showing girls learn how to experience womanhood. And I was not expecting to feel seen in watching a boy learn manhood and the patriarchy. And it's rather stunning.
And I feel like also it wasn't owed to men at all. We weren't owed a subplot in the Barbie movie. We weren't owed the grace of, hey, also you are also harmed by this. Mm-hmm. This movie could have just been Ken only has a good day if Barbie looks at him, and I would have been fine. A lot of men wouldn't have been.
It could have been, it could have been what Ben Shapiro thinks it is, which is men hating and angry.
I would have been fine with it because,
be angry.
We've earned that. We've deserved the anger. We deserve, that's good.
Yeah.
But the fact that, like, in the middle of everything else that she is doing, that this movie is doing, that they still took the time to be like, oh, hey, also, men, here's something that you can also, like, learn and think about and talk about and relate to.
And that's what I appreciate so deeply, is that it's, and that it's the B plot. Because that's a great idea, and I bet a lot of people tried to get Margot Robbie to make that the movie instead. Mm-hmm. Because Ken's gonna sell a lot better to movie audiences than Barbie, if you're trying to do like a real movie, you know.
And it's smart to utilize that too, because people feel so bad for Ken and for Ryan Gosling, and I think people who haven't seen the movie are angry that I have to empathize with Barbie at all. Right. And then a lot of people are like, Ryan Gosling steals the show, and so it's just so smart to like get people into the theater,
right? Like
with this plot of Ryan Gosling
and. You.
No, just like it's insane to me, the sort of like 4-dimensional chess Greta is playing this entire time of every possible like issue, objection butting up against an audience member could have on any scale is being engaged with, not just like subtextually but textually in this movie, where it's like, hey, we're gonna talk about, and there's a scene coming up in your quarter, we're gonna talk about the ways that Barbie has been harmful to women in feminism. We're gonna talk about the ways she has absolutely been beneficial to women in feminism. We're gonna talk about Ken's. We're gonna talk about masculinity. We're gonna talk about patriarchy. It's all here, and it's all in the text, and somehow this movie isn't 4 hours long. I don't know how she does it. I genuinely have no idea. It's
90.
Because
it's a 90-minute movie!
Greta Gerwig is spectacular because I really think she said, like, I could make this a 3-hour epic, or I could just be good at making movies. You know, like, or I could just get you fully on board with theme and concept and conflict and idea using the quick and universal visual language of film and cut an hour out of this movie. And I'm going to outsell Christopher Nolan doing it, because he's going to make another 3-hour movie that doesn't have to be 3 hours long.
Also, I guess, sorry, I didn't want to bring up the other movie that came out this weekend, really. Also, let's also acknowledge that scientist, physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer doesn't have the brand recognition. And, like, there's not, like, 30-plus animated Oppenheimer movies where he's in the Nutcracker.
I fully stand behind that Oppenheimer is to boys what Barbie was to girls.
Oppenheimer in the Nutcracker.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah. What happens is they are trying to find the girl who's playing with Barbie. And she can sort of see this young girl, like, playing with her in her mind's eye. We get some footage. I almost said live action, because that's how convincing this movie is that we are in another world.
It's like
in the opening.
now.
It's like, oh, people.
Yes.
Not dolls. But we get this, we can find her, and there is this, like, grind the movie to a pacing halt moment, because it has not stopped for 1 second. And there's this moment where Barbie ends up on her own in LA and just uses her eyes to observe the beauty of humanity, like the bittersweet beauty of humanity. Barbie sees her first old person, who's an old woman at the bench by her, and Margot Robbie does another impossible task of delivering the line, "You're so beautiful," to this woman, and no one on earth can read that line delivery as anything other than genuine and, like, deeply, deeply human admiration of this person and their beauty, which is, like, it's the scene. The woman is played by Barbara Handler.
It's not.
Is it not?
No. So
is that fake?
This is a fake thing that Twitter made up, and it's been going the rounds. And I'm gonna set the record straight, because I was spreading it around before I did my fact checking as well.
This woman.
It is not Barbara Handler. It is Anne Roth, who is a very famous costume designer.
Wait, that's so cool.
And has worked with, and is a friend of Greta's.
It's not Barbara.
It's not Barbara.
You heard it
It's a
here
fun.
first.
It's a nice story, but it's not.
Why don't you take that again?
While we are correcting misconceptions, there was not a global shortage of pink. It was the specific
the brand of
the specific, like, I don't know. There was, like, a specific, like, company they worked with that was like, we ran out of
not
pink.
all pink, but
Not
they
all
ran
pink
somebody out of pink.
But anyway, it wasn't important.
Clear
but I felt like we were
We're in the real world now.
Yes.
We're in the real world now.
We gotta
Wake
clear
up,
these things
face
up.
facts.
But it's the scene. Maybe this isn't true, right? But there's the story that's going around that's the scene that they really wanted to cut.
That one from
quotes. There's quotes from Greta.
I was gonna say I've checked
so.
that one. That one's true.
So she, was like, this is the whole movie. This is the movie does not work without this scene. And you can just imagine.
It doesn't.
You can just imagine. It doesn't. And I'm watching it. The whole time I watched it for the first time, I was like, what's the worst guy I know gonna think about this scene?
Yeah.
Like, what's the angry take about this? And it's like, oh, this scene. We had somebody in one of our theaters in that scene. She goes, "You're so beautiful," and this dude in the back went, and I was like, I'm gonna kill this guy. And so, but again, if you're one of these people who thinks that was dumb and, like, thinks that Barbie the movie hates men, you fundamentally lack media literacy. Greta Gerwig is so fluent in cinematic storytelling that if you're not getting this movie, you just don't know how to read movies. And you just told on yourself. Like, really, you should go see Barbie in the theaters with other people, because even if you hate women, you should go see Barbie in the theaters, and you should hear everyone else around you laugh and cry and connect in a human way with the things that are being presented. And if you're not feeling that, you can, being in the movie theater that's full, because this movie's going to sell out movie theaters for a long time, and if you do that, you can know for sure you're the problem. So you have to go see Barbie in theaters.
Don't put this in the podcast. If you don't like this movie, I'm going to tell everybody that when you pee your pants, you like it.
You don't have to like the movie.
Keep it in. Keep it in.
You don't have to like this movie, but I am like furious at people who just
Just
can't
refuse
understand
to
it, refuse to even watch it. It's bad faith.
Yeah.
Barbie, the idea of a woman as represented by a doll, experiences some of the deepest and most beautiful human emotions possible while in the human world, which is now where we're at minute 40. And then she realizes she kind of is able then to connect with her girl and knows that she's at school. And Ken comes back and also just finds out that men run this world. And so they're both excited about the things that they've learned. And they go to the school to find the girl, which they do. And she's
Sasha.
a teenager. I don't know.
Sasha.
How old is Sasha?
She is a tween by her own admission.
She's a tween. Like a 12, 13.
Yeah.
In that range, in a very like LA middle school, sit outside at lunch sort of setup. Margot Robbie approaches these girls after being told by a girl that she's like the mean girl. You know, you don't talk to Sasha. And Margot Robbie approaches them as Margot Robbie. Like, she's playing
Hey guys.
a celebrity who like is being paid to meet a girl for the first time and pretend to be your best friend.
What's that girl's name? I thought that was so like.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go talk to. I don't know. I just.
There's the special girl that I'm here for, and then she comes up right in the way that Barbie talks to you as a kid. It's like, you're my best friend. I'm Barbie. Do you want to play?
It does feel entirely like meeting a princess at Disneyland.
Exactly like that.
It does.
And she goes, hey Sasha, what's up? And like says her name, and they hate Barbie. And they, you know, she has her like, I haven't played with Barbie since I was 5. And she
calls her a fascist.
There's a really good line where like her friends are like, do it, Sasha. Destroy Barbie.
Destroy Barbie.
It's really good. And this gets to be Greta Gerwig's monologue where she gives voice to like her frustrations with Barbie. She gets to put them in a monologue where someone gets to say item by item everything that sucks about Barbie and her relationship with young girls and how harmful that is, which does culminate in her calling her a fascist.
Even though she doesn't control the railways or the flow of commerce.
To which Barbie cries and later says those wonderful words.
It's so funny.
Well, they know what the real world was like before.
Yeah,
right.
Before Barbie's
and that's
invention.
Something I was
That's an
going to say
interesting
earlier
point.
too, with like the point to like child brains is like Ken really has the child brain.
Sure.
And Barbie has like the child kind of emotional naivete of sorts, but like she knows what things are, which I think
she has the gift of students.
This isn't Giselle of Enchanted.
It's true, but as do little girls, right?
No, of course,
like
absolutely.
This movie's playing with like developmental stages with the child. Like,
I guess that's what I want.
And Barbie's just
for
more
men,
mature.
She is. Well, and that's what I want to like.
That's
specify.
what you're told about girls at like that age, right? Is like girls are just more mature. They're smarter. They like become adults faster. That's like how we're taught to experience it. So it is very much coming from this place when you start to change your relationship with Barbie of like end of elementary school, beginning of middle school, and you are like, if you're a boy, it's like you're a boy and then one day you choose to become a man. And if you're a girl, it's this like weirder, lengthier, blurry, like confusing blob of a couple years where you're supposed to come out of it a woman.
Like specifically being told at like Sasha's age and a little bit before, like, hey, right now you are better at everything than all of the boys in your life. You were smarter, you were faster, you were taller, you were stronger. and that won't happen forever, and you need to just enjoy it now and get over it. Because
Sasha is at the age where she is learning that the systems that exist to hurt her. And keep her disadvantaged. And she is powerful. And Sasha is just a great thing to acknowledge about this movie. Sasha and her mom, who becomes a major character, they're not white. Like, that. This is also playing into their experience with Barbie, who is definitely a white woman and always has been. And there's other Barbies that aren't white, but when you stop and you think of stereotypical Barbie, she's white and she has blonde hair and blue eyes. And so at the same time that Sasha, this girl, is learning about fascism and systems designed to oppress in order to support like a patriarchal oligarchy, Ken is learning that he just gets to have horses and do whatever he wants and take anything he wants. That's like how education works at that age. If you're a boy, it's like, you won. What do you want? Take it. And if you're a girl, it's like, I need to learn how to defeat this system ideologically. And so they are on different wavelengths. And the conflict of this movie is Barbie doing that growing up, of like learning about the system, acknowledging it, feeling hurt, dying, and then trying some solutions. And what happens is she leaves. She's very sad. Mattel gets word that there's dolls out, a Barbie and a Ken.
Which has happened before.
It's happened before.
But not with a Ken and a Barbie. With Skipper.
And a couple
who showed up in Florida and tried to babysit some kids.
And tried to go surfing with a toddler. And every member of NSYNC is an Alan.
Yes.
But other than that, it hasn't happened before. And so they capture her and are trying to... They take her back to the Mattel headquarters. Which is when we learn about this, like... Yeah, please.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I just think... There's this, like, secret third world that the movie doesn't talk about, where it's, like, there is Barbie Land, which is a non-patriarchal fantasy, and there's the real world, which is our reality as we know it, and then there's this other fantasy land, which is
Mattel
like
headquarters,
patriarchy land, the opposite of Barbie. Mattel headquarters represents like as artificial and made up.
I get you.
As Barbie land, it is man land.
Its offices are a set, and like that. But something that's interesting about Mattel that I wanted to mention is that watching this movie again, as soon as we get into Mattel, I was like, oh, this will be interesting, because this movie is a Mattel property that is also trying to comment on problematic things that Mattel has done and is continuing to do. And it kind of walks an interesting line with it by having it be this like kind of dystopia corporate office tower, except at the top where the board are, and all the other board members have a hive mind and they say the same thing at the same time, and it makes me laugh every time. And in our screening that we went to, that Parker and I went to, I was the one that was laughing consistently the loudest every time the men said the same word.
It's really funny.
It's really funny.
But I was like, man, no one else is getting as much joy out of this.
No one else gets it.
No one else gets it like I do.
No one else gets it.
They're saying the same thing at the same time, and that's funny. Anyway, but Will Ferrell plays the CEO, and he's got like a pink tie, and he is like, no, women are part of this. And it's an interesting thing, to the point that I read an interview with Mattel's CEO, and he said, he was like, yeah, we're not afraid of like self-deprecation.
It shows the genius of Greta Gerwig, and this is something that Rio pointed out, which is like something that helped Greta Gerwig do this thing that just changed female filmmaking forever. Literally, the highest box office grossing movie by a female director in an opening weekend of all time. The business model changed forever to allow more space for women. And the reason that was Greta Gerwig, and this is what you said, you say it because it's a cool thought. It's that she she just does capitalism better than anybody else. She learned the game.
Well, I was ragging on Don't Worry, Darling.
Yes,
in context of that.
Because that's part of it, but Greta Gerwig played the game because the whole Mattel thing, having the CEO of the company that's paying for your movie to be represented by Will Ferrell playing a patriarchal, misogynistic idiot and not hiding that in any way is genius, because you can do that. You can get these people to admit who they are if you just give them enough money. And so it's Greta Gerwig going like, oh, you're the CEO of Mattel? Will you admit that it sucks that you're all men and that you don't actually care about women and you're just selling a sexualized ideal to young girls in order to make money? And it's like, no. Well, it's like, here's $300 million in one weekend. Because now that Mattel is here, we get into the danger of hearing them directly try to save face.
Right, and like, so there's this one line that Will Ferrell says, Will, that I'm curious about you, and everyone else's opinions as well, of like, later, after Ken has done some things that have shifted reality, and now there's a new set being sold as a result of what's happening in
patriarchal
Barbie Land. A patriarchal
play set,
kind of like mess up of a Barbie set of like the Mojo Dojo Casa house. I'll just say it.
They've seen the movie.
They've seen the movie.
Yeah, they've seen the movie.
It's when the Mojo Dojo Casa houses are being sold, and they report that to Will Ferrell. They're saying, actually, these are selling really, really well. They're selling like crazy. And Will Ferrell says, I don't care if they're making money. I don't do this just for money. I do this to benefit the dreams of little girls everywhere in the least creepy way possible. And it's a funny line, but it is the only line in the movie where I go, well, that feels untrue to like this commentary on corporate stuff. And there's another line later where he admits something about money. And I'm curious if that's going to come up.
I think it's meta satire.
I think
genuinely
that Will Ferrell plays a walking disclaimer that can't help but call Barbie a Jezebel.
Right. Yes, because he does say that later.
And I think that is feminist communication in film. And you know how we all say, well, for a long time we had this idea that gossip is really, really bad. And a lot of that comes from the fact that gossip originates in female circles. Right? But so much of women's communication is sworn to secrecy. And I think that is Greta writing a line that to Mattel, you know, in the end, we love Barbie, we love little girls. But I think it is communicating in a much more secretive way of like, see how stupid this is?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It does feel dog whistling in that way.
Yeah. So I know that... I've heard people have really big problems with
Well, I don't have a big problem with it. I was hoping that
it's a sticking point.
Again, I've only seen the movie once.
Right.
I vaguely remember.
Because I've heard that pretty commonly. People are like, well, I don't really like that Will Ferrell. But I think his lines are so stock lines.
He's a caricature of the caring capitalist.
Right.
Yes.
He is a parody of like
in that
Mr. Warbucks or whatever.
As soon as Barbie, she doesn't even resist getting in the box and just wants to call her a mean name because he hates women in actuality.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
They do play. You're sorry, I did forget.
It like exposes this lie.
It's an ad read.
Sure.
And I think I can't believe that she got away with making his character so
well, and again, that goes back to the interview I was talking about where the CEO is like, yeah, I don't care. He's like, yeah, that's like, we don't care about self-deprecation. And honestly, that probably reads more of, it's going to make us
it makes
a lot
money.
of money.
Mm-hmm. What else is he going to say? You know what I mean?
That's what, like, you can pay these guys to admit that they're the
great
worst.
Great call on Mattel's part. Hey, that was such a great move. I bet you made a lot of money. And I can't believe, Greta, that you got away with that.
She talked him into it because she knew how to make it make money.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say is to be a great female director, you don't just have to succumb to all of the toxic traits that make a male director successful. You just have to be extremely fluent in the patriarchal language of capitalism.
Well, to that point, like, Will, you were talking about Greta knowing how to play the game, right? And this whole sequence, closing out, like, this quarter, is Greta playing that game immaculately. Everything you guys talked about with Will Ferrell, absolutely agree. And specifically, you and I talked about this. There is a line that happens here that 100% I am convinced only exists for the trailer. So that the trailer can get the concept across to people in 90 seconds. And it's the one thing that, like, you and I caught on. I was like, is this a 4.5-star movie rather than a 5-star movie? And it would be if this was here negligently, which is that the mom is leaning against the door of the CEO. Yeah, thank you. She's leaning against the door, and she goes, Barbie in the real world? That's impossible. And it's the one line in this movie that feels so, like, of a lesser movie, you know what I mean? Like,
so
it's just like, that's rough.
It feels like we're in 2006 a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It feels like...
And, like...
Jumanji brings animals to the real world? Yeah.
Right, but again, I'm fully convinced that line only exists because it needed to be in the trailer to get the idea really across. And again, it feels like Greta playing the game, saying, okay, Mattel, Warner Brothers, I will give you this one line so that you can put it here for your marketing purposes. So anybody who is either completely media illiterate but has decided to come to see this, we'll give them one last bone. We'll throw them one last charity. But otherwise, it doesn't need to be here. And, like, I think that I've come around on the line in that way. I don't like the line, but I fully understand why it's there, and it doesn't feel like a mistake like it did before.
Yeah.
It now feels like, okay, this is, again, playing the game.
This whole movie takes place in Mattel headquarters, which can be understood as Mattel, the company in the real world that's making this movie. It can be understood as an analog for every mega corporation that exists in America. It can be understood as like a government analog, and it's also feels like very much about Greta Gerwig's experience with the Hollywood studio system, which Mattel is kind of serving as, literally, by paying for this movie to be made. And like Mattel Studios, they have their own, we know this very well, they are a film company and have been for a long time. And the thing that is so interesting about all of this and how much they look like they are the bad guys of this movie. The people who are making the movie, literally, with their money, are the bad guys of the movie. And there's nobody on earth more media illiterate than studio executives. It's a studio executive who watched it and thought, why did Barbie fly down off the building? And she's like, oh, you know how when you play with Barbies? And he's like,
no.
You have to put a line in there or we're pulling funding. Nobody's going to get this.
But also
nobody's going to understand this movie.
Watching the first 45 minutes of this movie and then being like, wait, so is Barbie in the real world? You should put a line in. She's like, I already wrote the line. Okay,
that's fine.
It's exactly
it's
what you just said.
Wait, Barbie in the real world?
That's not possible.
No, it's them not saying anything. It's them just watching this movie, and then she goes, Barbie in the real world? That's what I was supposed to think. Oh, yeah, okay.
They know that's not possible.
I get it.
Okay, I get it. So they're trying to put Barbie back in a literal box. What are the consequences? What happens if you get in the box? We don't know. It's actually only set up.
Question with this whole
It's
movie.
this very scary
What are the
box.
stakes of the box?
The metaphor is not subtle.
Yeah.
It's very true.
What happens to you? That's not what this movie is about.
Yeah.
This movie is not about the worst things that can happen to you. Like,
and I'm sure
if
there
you're
is something.
a woman.
I just need to
Explicitly,
think about it.
it's not about that.
I just need to see it a fifth time, and I'll figure out. I'll know what the box is.
You'll get it.
And then, essentially, they run through this very constructed studio. It's the other realm that is not looking like a real space. It is a set. It looks like a soundstage. We're in another fictionalized place.
Because Barbie's trying to escape.
Barbie runs into the room of Ruth Handler, the inventor of Barbie, but we don't know that it's Ruth, and it's this really funky kind of Truman Show moment. And then Barbie's rescued by Sasha and her mom, Gloria, and they take them back after a great little car chase. We find out that Barbie's there for the mom, and this is when you kind of start to click in. I think the whole movie is either for or predominantly about moms. Like, this is a very, very, like a lot of Greta stuff, this is a movie about moms. And it's the mom that's been playing with the Barbies. Because Ken learns that the patriarchy is where men are in charge, and also immediately learns that he will never, ever, ever be able to participate in the patriarchy other than the basic, like, not feeling unsafe on the street. But he's not going to be in the government, and he's not going to run a company.
He can't even beach here.
He's not in that club, even though it's being sold as for all men. He learns it's not. So he
does
leaves,
not have the requirements.
and he starts a new patriarchy in Barbie Land while Barbie's gone.
We don't fully know that yet.
Yeah. We'll get,
We're about to find out.
And so we go back to Barbie Land with Sasha and Mom, and Gloria is the one who's been thinking about, what if Barbie was actually more like a real person, and she had cellulite, and she had depression, and she had irrepressible thoughts of death. And she's coming up with these toy concepts where she's the executive secretary, and she's sitting out there coming up with doll ideas that actually in 2023 would probably be wildly financially successful, while the men are in there sitting trying to think up new ideas, and Will Ferrell's just saying nothing. Just like saying buzzwords about women's
female liberation.
Agency.
It's agency.
And so we go back to the Barbie Land.
And we go back to Barbie Land.
I'll just start this of like, has been taken over by the patriarchy and looks exactly like a version of Barbie when it's the cheerleaders and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is like what you're taught Barbie is when you're a boy. This is what you're taught Barbie looks like. Is like, yeah, I'm the president. Look how cool my bikini is. Like, that's what you think feminism is when you're a boy Ken's age, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So that is the kind of patriarchy that Barbie Land has become.
Yeah.
All you king.
Well, except the boys are in charge.
Except, no, because it's like, there's our Supreme Court. And it's like, yeah, they're all cheerleaders. Like, they're the Supreme Court.
The way the Barbies are being portrayed.
The Barbies, she's still the president of the country, but she's serving beers.
Right, because they haven't voted yet.
Yeah.
But, like, everyone is still like, I'm astronaut Barbie. Want a beer? Like, that's what you're taught.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
It is. No, I think that's a helpful clarification.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Go crazy.
It's a great quarter, buddy. It's a great quarter.
Thank you.
I also really like every single journey in and out of the real world is so fun. Watching Ken solo it back into Barbie Land and watching America Ferrera and Sasha.
All of them going is my favorite.
Going. There's a line when they're on the snowmobile where Gloria is like, I had this Barbie as a kid and... Sorry to disappoint you.
Keep going.
I had this Barbie as a kid, and I lost the boots, and my mom wouldn't let me buy a whole nother Barbie just to replace the boots. And there's something so girlhood about that, and I'm still chewing on it.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any insight, I think that's a great line.
Girls.
And I just don't know how to interpret that yet.
Get in the comments,
but it's
girls.
really, somebody talk to me about that.
My favorite line delivery in the whole movie, for some reason, is when they're going back for the first time and they start traveling to Barbie Land and they're like, how did we get here? How did we get in these clothes? And Barbie goes, how did we get on this vehicle? And she's like,
weird.
That acting choice that she makes of like, you're asking, fun, huh? Magic. Yeah. And it is, for some reason, my favorite
it's really
line
fun.
delivery in the whole movie.
It is really fun. They roll up to Barbie Land. And they are getting a tour. It's been Kenified. It is no longer Barbie Land, it is Kendom. Which also, fun fact, this movie in Denmark, they start calling it Kenmark. That's pretty cute.
Oh,
they
that's
write in the sky with this jet plane, Kenmark.
That's really
I love
good.
That.
That's almost as good as the CGI dress over Florence Pugh in
Oppenheimer,
where when people don't want to see
it is better.
That is better.
That's almost as good as a bad CGI blender physics dress on Florence Pugh.
Oh no.
Anyway, but they do kind of point out, Sasha asks, where do the Kens live? And Barbie's like, I actually genuinely have no idea. So I do like that because
we also never learned that.
Never learned that.
The Kens are fully
superfluous.
Definitively marginalized.
Yes.
That is the word to use.
It's not entirely malicious. They do genuinely they just never thought about it.
Yeah.
And
it's
dudes.
Benevolent sexism.
There is a lot
that's what it's like to be
a lot of malicious
sexism.
And then sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I say things to Will, and Will's like, that's crazy. I had no idea that was the experience
Rio will be like,
person could have.
Rio will be like, oh, I don't actually like going to that Walmart because the last 3 times I've gone, someone's threatened to kill me in the parking lot.
Because I was looking at my nails too long, so I did deserve it. And it's that's a thing that could even happen? So...
that's just for being a woman?
That's, I think, an interesting nod to that.
I genuinely don't know. Yeah.
We roll up to Barbie's dream house, but it is no longer Barbie's dream house. Ken has taken over. It is Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa house. And he gives Barbie the opportunity to stay as his bride wife or as his non-committal, long-distance girlfriend, brewski, casual hangout. Brewski beer me, and she's not interested.
Also, just the most minor of things, but just moments that scratched my brain. Mm-hmm. Just the best way in this movie. Something about Ryan Gosling slocking that freaking golf club down like a rapier into his belt.
Her house.
Just the way he he just drops and just shink goes straight down to his belt. I love it.
It's also when he does his funniest line delivery. which is, I don't even remember what the line is, but he's backing up and he goes, ah ha ha ha.
That's okay.
That's okay. I don't remember what the rest of the line is, but he does go,
you are, Barbie.
ah ha ha.
He's so well because
funny.
he's playing this like kind of it is so boyish and
It's so
such a
boyish.
sweet way.
Big
This
Sylvester
I don't know.
Stallone
It almost
for-
reminded
Yeah.
me of like Lord of the Flies of like,
Yeah.
well, you can join my clan or you don't have because here.
I'm the king.
I'm just a dude, and he like does a pull up because he's like that'll emphasize my point. And in the real world, somebody asked us like, "Sir, do you have the time?" And he's like, "They respect me," so he's covered in
He's just got watches
He's like
now.
everything that makes me powerful and the know-how. And
I've never seen in a movie like an indoor pull-up bar as the prop that it, like the gender prop that it is,
Yes.
that like people have in their apartments
whatever. I'm just a
to
dude.
perform masculinity.
It is so good, right?
I've
it is
never seen. I guess
I'm
that's
a man.
that's what the whole Ken sequence is. Is like, what if gender was as propified?
Yes.
What if we
The
made boys
accessories.
little accessories and
The
costumes
Ken
to
house
be
has
as
Right,
many
because-
accessories.
to be as patriarchal as Barbie is
because usually
feminist?
dolls for boys, the accessories are
Gun.
a gun
Mhm.
or a sword,
Yeah.
and they're not.
And
real
he gets a
men,
mini
they're
fridge
like
with a
action
sticker.
figures,
It's
right?
great.
If there was like a doll for boys, what props would they have?
And there's such a good call out of that later in the movie during the Ken battle, where it's like, do they have real weapons here? No.
No.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
like
Not at all.
Did I get shot?
And so Ken's really mean to Barbie and won't give her back her house, and so Barbie has
Using the language she used on him.
yeah. Oh,
'Cause he
there's
makes
a
that
really,
point.
There's an emotional moment too.
There is an emotional moment.
Because I don't even remember the line, but basically he's like, "No, this isn't about
You failed me.
you didn't fail to restore balance. You failed me."
She's like, Barbie failed women in the real world.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you failed
You failed
me as a person.
as a person. I don't get to out there. I was somebody, and
Yeah.
here I'm just a dude in Kenmark, and so Barbie has a complete mental breakdown.
I can't remember what he says to her. There is something he says where he basically just says, "You're not welcome here."
Yeah.
And she starts to cry, and he says, "Doesn't feel very good, does it?"
Mm-hmm.
He says, it's boys' night.
That's what. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what it is. He's like,
Every night.
yeah, every
Yeah.
night is
Every
boys'
night
Every
is
night is
boys'
boys'
because
night.
that's what Barbie said earlier.
Right.
Every night's girls' night.
Sorry, every night's
Yeah.
girls' night.
Because he's like, can't we hang out sometimes? He's like, it's girls' night.
And again, like it just
Every night's
right,
girls' night.
like
And he goes,
everybody
right, you
everybody
are,
is
Barbie.
giving Ryan Gosling all the credit in the world for like his over the top like foppishness in this, and it's really good. But he has moments like this where he slips in like this makes you want to cry vulnerability
Incredible.
of just like the way like his face, like the twitch of the corner of his mouth at that moment of like it doesn't
love
feel very good, does it?
I love it too because like at the very beginning of the movie when he gets like so hurt trying to surf and impress Barbie, and he's like, how much of that did you see? He's like got this look on his face of like just being so cool about it.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just his performance of boyishness trying to understand patriarchy and manhood.
And that boyishness is the thing that's so
so
interesting
cool.
because that vulnerability is where it comes from. Like, you can... He looks like he's on the verge of tears 50% of the
All the
time in this movie.
time.
And that's a boyish thing.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
A pin
Yeah,
a
it's
pin
so
on
good.
that for when we get to the probably in Max's quadrant, the breakup.
Yeah.
I have a story with that.
Okay.
Okay.
So Barbie has a meltdown. She tears off all her little accessories and it takes out her earrings and she's gonna wait for one of the more leadership-oriented Barbies to do something. Because here's the issue, is that all of the Barbies are going along with everything. They say that, like, the patriarchs explained to them, and it was great. I love to be a helpful decoration.
And it's nice to not be in charge of everything.
Yeah, it's like a spa day for my brain, which I
Well,
think is
there
how...
are two responses. When you realize you're an adult and you're an adult woman living in the patriarchy. You either play the game or die on the inside. Like,
Yeah.
or something dies.
Which Barbie
You
says
experience the
directly
trauma.
later of, like, either you're brainwashed or you're weird and ugly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Like, you either check out, which is to avoid the trauma, which is like what the other Barbies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Of like being fully repressed or it's so amazing. Like, I've seen you, Rio, have this emotional experience of like, you don't have to talk about it, and I can cut it however you want, but it's like something that I love about this movie is I've seen you process in that vulnerable way, like, these people want me to die. Yeah. I'm not wanted here. I'm objectified. It's scary. I'm never going to own a house. There's nothing for me, and there's nothing I could do about it, fundamentally. And they're playing that. Margot Robbie is playing that 100% authentically.
And that is like the time where she starts to become so ashamed of the fact that she's stereotypical Barbie, because I'm not, she's like, I'm not the president. I'm not an astrophysicist. No one on the Supreme Court is me. Just like, she starts to really hate herself too.
The way that women right now, like the women that I know in my life, it's the way that they are feeling when they look at the Supreme Court in 2023. It's why that line is in there. Like, it is this genuine duress that if you're like lucky enough to be let in on that secret conversation with women, you will see this exact fear. It's this like really timely, honest, like it feels like the comedy movie, but like very heartfelt version of like some horrific Supreme Court things happened this year, and you remember talking to the women in your life.
And like, what do you do?
What do you do?
It's like,
I don't know what to tell you.
for one of the more leadership-oriented Barbies to do something, but that's not a thing that will happen. And, Sasha says, like, I almost feel bad for you, but you're exactly what I thought. She just she is a blonde and gives up and whatever. So they go to leave, and Weird Barbie, don't worry, arrives and, like, snap out of it, and Margot Robbie doesn't, and they go back to her weird house. On their way back to the journey of the real world, they discover that Alan has stowed away inside their pink convertible, because he also hates the Ken world and was much happier in Barbie land as someone who is like non-conforming to this identity gender role of Ken. He also doesn't want to massage a foot. So
we had a pin
he's
on
trying
Alan.
to get out. Yeah, somebody wanted
there
to
was
say
a
something.
pin on Alan.
Does somebody want to take Alan?
There was a gender
Alan?
Because I'm not in Alan.
Yeah, okay, Max, you had a pin on Alan.
Now I don't know if I remember it.
It was about in context of Weird Barbie, right? And
well,
also being...
for Alan, I think, like, obviously, like, for me, and I immediately talked to Bart about this, I talked to my brother-in-law about this, I relate to Alan in that he is, again, someone who is there, like, played by a male actor, a man in this world, who does not conform to the Ken idea, which is basically beaching all the time. So, like, being really, like, super hot and ripped and, like, playing volleyball. Like, Alan's just there and being like, yeah, Ken, great job. However, there's also the read of him as being a gay man, which I think is very interesting. And also, again, like, I had that realization after, like, when I was talking to the group that Parker and I went and saw it, Parker's first time seeing it.
Yes.
Where I was just talking about, like...
Well, you were talking about this idea of, like, what specifically what you're talking about, of Alan in terms of talking about it in context of a queer identity perspective, which we've talked about, but kind of coming back to the first point that you were making, that was something we talked about after the movie, was that, like, Alan is a stand-in for boys who never felt welcomed in the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Who never fit the Ken mold.
Right, and in that way can be a stand-in for anyone who doesn't feel they fit in this binary and in this patriarchy, and in, like, yeah, if you are someone who's like, well, I'm not that, then who are you? And so I just think that's an interesting point, and I think it's very interesting that obviously then later Alan is part of the girls' team, kind of, and we'll get into that. Yeah. But in this moment, he is stowed away in the Corvette as Gloria and Sasha try to make their escape.
I do have one more Alan.
Go ahead.
I just love Alan. Alan is a stand-in for, like, there's multiple types of people. And Barbie Land is generally girls who played with Barbie. And the Kens represent boys who played with other toys. Boys who, like, by the time they get patriarchal, right, it's like they're boys who had G.I. Joes. Mm-hmm. They're the boys club boys. They've proved that they can go into the boys club. And Alan is a boy who had a Ken doll, which is different than a boy who had a Barbie doll, and it's different than a boy who had a G.I. Joe doll. And it's like this, he's Ken's best friend.
Yeah.
Like,
and all of his marketing and the way that even Michael Cera introduces himself is like, hi, I'm Alan, I'm Ken's friend. All his clothes fit me. Like,
yeah,
it's really...
Because there's the Barbie boy, which is a group of people. They're like boys who had Barbies are incorporated, I think, really welcomingly into Barbie land. They don't have their own, like, distinct... If you're a kid who played with Barbie, it, like, looks like Barbie land, and there's not a character that represents boy who loves Barbie, which is a major demographic of this film. Mm-hmm. Like, in the marketing, in its writing, but Alan is this, like, very unique... He's the Ken kid.
This might be another clean cut out of the podcast, because this might be too vulnerable. This might just be me talking with my friends on the couch for a minute. But you talking about that completely drudged up or repressed memory that I had, which was in high school, living in Idaho, we would come down to Utah to go and sing during Christmas time, just around the area, Temple Square, for those of you who know. And across the street is this great, shopping center, this mall. And we went there, and there was a Disney store that used to be there. And I distinctly remember I was probably like, I don't know, 15 or 16. And we went to the Disney store, and I love Disney stuff. And they had a whole wall of Disney Barbie dolls. And they had all the princesses there.
Sick.
And they had some of the princes. And specifically, I got really excited because they had an Aladdin and they had a genie. And the genie looked like the genie. Like, he was just... He had, like, the, A-frame, like, doll model shape, but, like, it was the genie. Like, it had, like, a wider torso, and it was, a different face mold. It was a genie toy. And I wanted to grab this Aladdin, this genie. And the guys I was hanging out with was like, yeah, but there's a Barbie doll. And I didn't get it. And I just, like, I completely repressed that memory. That, like, I wanted to grab this Aladdin and genie, and I didn't, because the men in my group, who were all choir kids, who were all theater kids, who were of the oeuvre that, like, this shouldn't have been a problem, I got pushback on, well, yeah, but it's a Barbie doll. Yeah. And so I didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Alan coded.
That's Alan coded.
That's pretty Alan coded.
That's an Alan coded trauma. Yeah. Which, like, this movie makes room for such a wide experience with Barbie.
And I'm glad Alan exists, and I also am glad that there is the line that's like, well, I'm a woman. I mean, I'm a man without power. Does that make me a woman? No. But I'm glad that Alan exists to explain that there are men that don't fit. Not like, if you think that this movie hates men, you didn't watch it.
It hates the patriarchy.
It hates
and
the
if you
patriarchy.
think it hates men,
if you think it hates men, then that means
you identify with the patriarchy. You just tattled
on yourself. So, anyway, the Mattel is trying to build a wall in between Barbie world and the real world. There's a great joke where Alan's like, once they figure out how to build that wall across the world and not just up, it's really funny. Kind of a nod to the, like, screwball comedy, I feel like.
Totally.
And then Alan beats all those guys up, and I think kills one. I think
he chokes one to death,
with a shovel.
He passes out at least,
one.
but
and then there's a great kind of mother-daughter moment between Sasha and Gloria, of like, I've seen your drawings; they're incredible. Because earlier Barbie immediately, once Ken takes her house and is mean to her and yells at her and golf ball smacks her plants, is mad at Gloria, is mad at a mom, is mad at another woman. Because, especially as, like, a preteen girl, who do you take your anger out on? You take it out on your mom. And so there's that going on. It's also,
I've
like...
seen Lady Bird, yeah.
And also, like, there is such a... We're so quick to blame other women for the things that... I heard this even talking about, like, some of the women in my life didn't want to go see Barbie because it's like, Barbie was really negative experience for me because my brothers would take my Barbies and undress them and it's like, you're hating Barbie, which there are reasons to hate Barbie, but you're upset about Barbie because of things that boys in your life did too. Not boys, but I didn't explain that very well, so maybe cut that out of the podcast. But
you explained it good. That was good. It's staying.
But she blames Gloria, and so Gloria's feeling awful, and Sasha's like, don't blame my mom. Like, you're weird, and you're dark, and you're crazy, and you're interesting, and you're talented, and you're smart, and this is not your fault. And then they decide to go back. They decide to go back, another visual bit for the podcast.
And, like, Sasha decides to go back.
Sasha decides to go back because Barbie world needs saving, Barbie needs saving. So they roll up to the weird house and meet all of the discontinued Barbies, all of these other outcasts, because it gently acknowledges that there are other identities and there are other people besides Kens and Barbies, and it's really, I don't know, it's funny. There's Sugar Daddy Ken, there's Magic Earring Ken, there's Growing Up Skipper,
It's played for comedy textually.
Mm-hmm.
Subtextually, it feels like it's giving you the room to acknowledge there is something outside of this binary
messed up
that has, long before the Ken patriarchy showed up, there were already people here who didn't fit into this.
Yes.
And
there's
again,
already,
while it's played for comedy in the text,
it is a queering of the Barbie Ken identity.
Yeah.
And also that the patriarchy has always been involved with Barbie. Right.
Yes.
Always. Growing up, Skipper, boobs grow. It's sexualizing young girls.
Yeah.
And that's just, no matter what you do, you have to address that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No matter how you feel about Barbie.
Yeah. One of the brainwashed Barbies is there, and they're trying to convince her, like, no, you've written a book, you won a Nobel Peace Prize, and she's like, oh,
I'd like to thank
you, Ken. I love that I don't deserve this, which is a feminine modifier, you know, like, you're not an apology, and I don't deserve this, and but the humans show up, and Barbie's still having an existential crisis, and then America Ferrera gives us the monologue of a century, where she's just talking about it opens with, it's impossible to be a woman, and it's all of this cognitive dissonance, and this movie is so much about and there is a lot of in what is expected of women. Like looking a certain way, but not wanting to look a certain way, and having, and how hard it's gotten too, because like you have to have a job, but you also have to want to take care of everybody. So she has this incredible monologue. I'm not even going to try. Just, you've seen it.
You know, when you cried your eyes out.
You remember when you cried?
You know when your theater applauded?
You know what? Remember when your theater applauded?
Yes, we did.
Applauded.
We got applause. We got a preach.
We got an amen.
Yeah, an amen.
It's
cheers.
It's good, and there's a pause built in for you to react to that, which I thought
who
cool.
said that?
Yeah, that was Liv. We were talking about it with some friends after the second watch. Yeah, shout out to Olivia
Stream
Sham. And had the most brilliant way of describing it, which is that she's like, Greta gave the audience a line. Built in is a silence after that.
Yeah.
And not a silence in the way that Endgame has a silence when Captain America catches the hammer. This one feels like an actual invitation from the filmmaker to the audience.
Yeah.
Here is your line.
Remember when we thought going to the cinema was dead, and the only evidence we had to say maybe there was hope was Endgame? And Endgame was a shared cinematic experience, but a social media simulacra of it. Yeah.
Whereas Barbie is a lot more natural.
Barbie was like, you have to...
It's in the middle of a monologue.
Yeah, watching this on a streamer is going to feel a little weird.
Yeah.
Because you don't have 50 strangers
it's not meant to
cheer
go viral.
with.
Yeah.
Right, that's the thing, is Endgame feels designed for somebody to take out their phone and record it, and it goes viral on Twitter because they're like, isn't this so exciting to be in a theater? And it is exciting to be in a theater.
I love it.
Genuinely, it is so much fun to be in that space. Somebody pulling out their phone and recording this for Twitter feels sacrilegious.
Yeah.
There's something about that moment that is you need to be in this space, experiencing it this way, and like you said, streaming it is going to be a weird experience.
That monologue draws awareness to the actual human beings that you're sitting next to, who think and feel the things that are being said on screen.
Yeah.
And that's important for women to experience and to feel collectively seen and heard, and to say this secret out loud. And it's important for men to go see and hear. It's important for everybody to go see it and hear it. And because you're meant to experience empathy for an actual real life other human being that you could reach out and touch and talk to and improve their life.
Both times I've seen it, it has felt consistently in that moment like the energy is that every single woman or female identifying individual in that theater is, like you said, the secret has been said out loud. Like that, this is so true to the experience that they've felt. Everybody else, I can feel the energy is they are thinking of every woman in their life. It is impossible to watch that scene and not immediately think of your mother, your sister, your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, whoever. If you aren't of that category of people, immediately your brain is going to everybody in your life who is and how this applies to them.
Because kind of setting this monologue in motion, Barbie, Margot Robbie, is like, no one's gonna like me. I'm not pretty enough, and then there's a great voiceover that's like, it's Margot Robbie. She looks like Barbie. America Ferrera's monologue ends with like, I am so just like sick and tired of seeing every single woman I know tie themselves into knots so that people will like them, and that is just such. Sit on that for a while, everybody. That's all I'm gonna say. Think about that. Chew on it. That's the fork in my soup.
Do we want to call that the quadrant?
But then also,
I was going to get us through Ken. I don't know.
Yeah, you can. I was just going to say, but then also she says, and if all of that also applies to a doll representing women.
An idea of a woman. Yeah.
Like, what is that?
If you have to jump through this many mental gymnastics to make an ethical Barbie movie, how do you make any movie about women ever?
Or be one.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm like Greta Gerwig constructing this of like...
Yeah. It reminded me that a movie theater is a theater. You know?
Theater.
Yeah.
Theater with an R-E rather than...
With theatra.
Right.
For people.
Yeah.
To experience shared catharsis.
But that sick monologue snaps out of one of the brainwashed Barbies, snaps her out of it. And that's how they get their plan to... acknowledge the cognitive dissonance of how hard it is to be a woman under the rules of the patriarchy. That snaps the Barbies out of it, and then they can recruit them to their cause. They've got all the Barbies, and their plan is to make the Kens turn on each other because for a long, it's always been about impressing the other Kens. And so
they need them distracted for
they need them distracted. Oh, because the Kens are planning to overturn the Constitution and establish patriarchy.
Yeah, do some irrevocable legal damage.
Yes.
Kendom land.
Yeah. And once it's legal, there's nothing you can do. So they all go on a group date.
To turn them against
Ryan Gosling yells,
Wait,
sublime!
Yeah, I was going to say, pause for a minute. We have to talk about the best line delivery in the movie when Margot Robbie goes back and does a fake apology and asks him to take her back.
Please play the guitar at me?
And Ryan Gosling says, one moment. And he goes behind the wall. And the inclination, you would think, like Max and I were talking about this, it's going to be a scream. It's going to be a wahoo. It's going to be something.
It's going to be crying.
But instead, it is just a sublime. And he walks back out.
Well, I love it because I feel like
it's such a funny word to choose.
We talk about, and it's getting talked about more, and it should continue to be talked about, that men don't get to express like negative emotions, you know? Like true sadness and crying, and Ken kind of talks about that later when he is crying. But you also, I don't feel like, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, boys, but do you get to see that kind of giddy joy depicted from men often?
It has to exist in a very specific box.
Yeah.
You can do that on the football field.
And he didn't want Barbie to see it.
Yeah.
You know, and so him hiding it to go experience that, it's
But you
tender.
cannot be like, oh my gosh, my girlfriend likes me so much.
That's not allowed.
She kissed me on the cheek and I felt so loved.
You can't talk about butterflies.
Giddy is an emotion that is not typically smiled upon.
Unless it's about, like, other boys.
Or, like...
You can be like, dude, you just...
like this girl made me
like
so
other boys.
happy.
Like, it's like, freaking...
Wow, that guy totally caught that.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Oh, you got the goal, man.
But even then, the giddiness isn't just like a sublime. Like
right, it's never that.
Yeah, and like
again, that's like I said, butterflies are never allowed.
Yeah, so I thought that was very sweet. And he plays the guitar at Barbie for 4 hours, as does every other Ken to their individual respective Barbies.
Good,
and then they make him
really
jealous by all
move.
switching the Kens and wanting to go to playing on this like insecurity that they're more interested in another man.
Ken, Ryan Gosling, shout out to you again, plays this moment that is like scary to me every time I watch it, of like watching his brain shift to patriarchy mode where he does his line of like, who are you texting? Who are you texting? And takes her phone. It's like, actually, guys.
Yeah.
All of us know guys who think like that and behave like that, and it's so scary.
It's scary.
And it's like, that moment is like, makes me tense up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, these are the real emotional consequences of this kind of thinking.
Put a pin in that at the end.
So it works, and the Kens are really upset, and so they go home to their Mojo Dojo Casa houses and decide that they have to go up to war against the other Kens.
And I think that's a good quarter mark, I think.
Yeah. Do you want to take the dream ballet?
This is just when Ken starts singing his song, right? Mm-hmm. As they prep for war, Ken sings a song about how he's been feeling and how he's, just Ken.
Which has put Ryan Gosling on, like, the top 10 on Spotify right now.
Everyone go listen to Dead Man's Bones.
Dead Man's Bones is so good! Go listen to Dead Man's Bones. This Halloween,
listen to Dead Man's Bones, which is a band that Ryan Gosling did in 2009.
It's just spooky band.
Something like that. It's really good.
Wow.
Anyway, I didn't know the children's choir.
This war has my favorite, like, production design moment.
Ahead.
Which is them shooting like Nerf balls and Nerf bow and arrows and throwing kickballs and like stuff. And I was 2. It's so maximalist. But my third time watching it, I just watched a Nerf ball go slow motion past, and it lands on the water and bounces off the top of the plastic water. And you can watch all of those toys that are being shot just bounce into infinity on the plastic ocean. And it's just
that's so
delightful.
That's really good. Yeah, so they all go to war, and it has this big battle sequence with all the Kens using tennis rackets and pillows and beach balls and that sort of thing, arrows that are like Nerf, like Will's saying.
And their own, like, male sexuality is used as a weapon.
Yeah, they're like burying their chests and sparkles happen. Which
if they're hot enough, you can make a man pass out.
I think you and I specifically talked about like being obsessed with like the way that Shutigawa like holds his tennis racket on like the push-in. Did we not talk about that?
It's the best
moment.
Oh my god.
No, but it's really
just like that above his head.
Sure.
Is
really
funny.
It's really good. And then it transitions into a dream ballet, which made up 30% of the movies that Greta Gerwig was inspired by to make this movie, and I'm so glad that someone brought back a dream ballet proper.
Absolutely.
Rio's been
set
asking
is gorgeous.
For it.
Just a really beautiful kind of white void with like pink and blue kind of hues about it, right?
And more bespoke choreography.
More bespoke choreography of just all the Kens wearing just black shirts, black pants,
it's
and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful, and it's so fun to look at.
And their feet are blacks.
And they're holding hands, and that's kind of how the battle ends, is they realize that they're all Kens. And they all deserve kind of...
Because there's a lyric they have, as a choir, they all say, I'm just Ken and I'm enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the song is the transition of the idea of like, I'm just Ken to I'm just Ken.
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
which is what it's marketed. It's Barbie, like she's everything and he's just Ken, is what all the posters say.
Right.
And right before that,
that's funny.
All of that is...
It's a joke.
It's funny. And then also it's like, it's Barbie coming to the terms with the fact that a woman is everything. It has to be everything and experiences everything and has so much cognitive dissonance there. And that Ken is just Ken, and that's so dope.
I haven't connected it that way before. That's really good.
I liked that.
Yeah, and so they sing their little song, and while they've been doing this, the Barbies have completed their plan to distract them from voting so that all the Barbies can make their oon vote, which is basically just that Barbie Land will remain forever, right?
Back. Yeah, they put the Constitution back.
Not just all the Barbies.
And Alan.
All the Barbies and Alan.
And the
Alan's
humans.
also there.
Yeah.
And the
humans. Yeah, so they get the Constitution back in place, and the Kens realize, and they all... Well, no, they don't. They all walk back to the dream houses, holding hands, having a good time, and then they go, is it just me, or does it feel like it's a lot dreamier?
In the weirdest ADR line in the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's just me to these Mojo Dojo Casa houses get a lot dreamier.
Yeah, and they did, because all the Barbies are back in their dream houses.
Mother...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bleeped F word in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
With the Mattel logo.
With the Mattel
logo.
It's so
It's
funny.
good.
I wish they kept the F the Empire and just put a Lucasfilms.
Yeah.
A
Oh,
Mattel
that
logo.
would be good.
That would have been good.
A Hasbro
Yeah.
logo.
Yeah.
There's
so
one joke for the film bros.
This is kind of where, this kind of wraps up is, well, I mean, there's just the emotional...
I mean,
was
yeah,
gonna say,
just the entire,
you have
character
the
arc
East-
conclusions
Well,
for
I
every
don't feel
character.
confident enough.
Oh, no,
Well,
you got it.
No, I need y'all to do it.
All right,
The Kens are back. What
the
happens?
Kens are back, and Margot Robbie says, like, hey, things are back to normal now, and Ken has an existential crisis and can't handle it, and abandons his brothers and runs inside crying.
Is he crying?
And he's crying face down on the bed, and Barbie comes to visit him and says, hey, like, you doing okay? He said, it's okay. It's okay to cry. He's like, what is this exact phrasing? He's like, it's not I'm a man in touch with my feelings. It's something.
I'm an empowered... What does he say?
Like the specific
I'm
phrase
a
is,
liberated man.
I'm a liberated,
I'm a liberated man. I'm not ashamed of my feelings. It's just a really funny little moment. But basically, like, she is trying to help him, and through trying to help him, starts helping herself, because she's saying, like, hey, like, you exist outside of me. And she has a genuine moment of apologizing and saying, hey, like, not every night had to be girls' night. Like, it didn't have to be, ooh. That was
Not
God
every night had to be girls' night.
Yeah, that was definitive.
Actually, every night is girls' night.
Oh, it's been decreed by God.
Today
Oh my
and
God.
yesterday and every day forever.
Like Ken says, I just don't know who I am without you. And I think Margot Robbie plays it brilliantly of realizing that she also doesn't know who she is
Yeah.
without Barbie. And they both... That is the goal for both of them.
Right. And it's a really lovely moment from the both of them, I think. And, like, Will, you were talking about Margot Robbie's greatest strength in this movie is, like, the double realization, like, the double meaning of, like, yes, like, that kind of feeling. She does so many of those, and, like, this scene culminates in one of those of, like, oh, you are just you, like, and you see that switch go off
It's
in her
Barbie
eyes,
and it's Ken.
and it's just a nice little moment. And, like, one thing I've seen people talking about, and I think it is an interesting observation to make, is that Barbie apologizes for the things she's done, and the things that she's done that genuinely, like, weren't the chillest things to do, but also in the grand scale of things are pretty incomparable to, like, the stuff that Ken did. Barbie doesn't get an apology from Ken. And I don't think that negates his character arc. I don't think that negates, like, the message that he is and the lessons he's learning. But I do think, again, Greta playing 4D chess, I think that also speaks to a lot of women's experience. I don't know, the movie is doing so many things, all in the middle of a Barbie movie. A Mattel-funded Barbie movie. And I just think that's really interesting.
So that's Ken becomes Knuff.
Yeah.
That's his ending. Daughter and mother.
Pitch normal Barbie,
Pitch
and it is going to make money.
Complicated.
So Mattel says that's fine.
complicated and or Barbie.
Right? Oh, yeah, because the Mattel guys are there.
Yeah, the Mattel guys got there.
They come out of the treehouse.
They
They're
get to
all
make-
in the treehouse.
they get-
They're on the tree.
Greta Gerwig
Which
has
is another
just...
really good sight gag.
Greta
Yeah.
Gerwig just saved the concept of Barbie, which was on the verge of death, I think.
Yeah.
And she just gave it another 20 years of life. So Mattel's happy.
And, yeah, so at this point, everyone's kind of getting their Wizard of Oz kind of happy ending. But Margot Robbie's Barbie is like, well, I don't know who I am. Like, I'm not Barbie anymore. I don't know what I am. And it's at this point that the woman that was introduced earlier, who we didn't know who it was earlier, when Barbie was in Mattel headquarters and wandered onto a soundstage that was an old woman's cottage. And played by Rhea Perlman, Ruth Handler comes into Barbie Land And she's like, come with me. And they step outside. And obviously, after I'm done with this, please bring up any lines that I've forgotten. And she takes her into yet another just beautiful white kind of soundstage area that has these really beautiful kind of hazy, blobby colors of like blue.
There's fog machines.
It reminds me a lot of the end of the Dream Ballet and Singing in the Rain. Like those washes of color.
It's really pretty.
It's like something between that and like a cool aquarium.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they stand there, and basically Barbie is explaining what she's feeling. And she's like, I don't really know what I'm feeling. I think I maybe want to be this or do this. And Ruth Handler's like, well, you don't need to, it sounds like you're asking me for permission.
Yeah, she's like, can I do that? Like, and she said, why? Like, well, you're the creator. Like, don't you control me? Don't I have to ask your permission?
Yeah, and she doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys remember these lines. I want to hear it from you.
And she doesn't. She doesn't have to ask for permission.
Yeah, no lines from any of us.
And that kind of ties into what Will was talking about, of that kind of that mother-daughter relationship. I imagine a lot of women really relate to. Of like, there comes a time where you are like, oh, I don't have to like ask for permission from like either my mother or like older women, other women, to do things and be things, and to just be free to do what you want to do and be who you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's we get the hardest line in cinema history of the 2020s. Maybe just the hardest line of the decade. The
line that she says that we mothers stand still so that our daughters can look back and see how far they've come.
Yes.
And I have not been able to stop thinking about that line.
That's a wow.
Apparently I could. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Just now. And I saw it.
And
once.
it is...
That's okay.
You know how, like, in your second puberty as a dude, you can now grow facial hair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Sasha is going through her first puberty, and you realize like the entire world is against you, and you have to learn how to operate underneath that, and everyone hates women, and blah, blah, blah. And then this like second puberty that Barbie experiences of realizing like, actually, no one actually has control over you, and you are. It's Barbie realizing that she can be human, which the transition from doll to human is very cinematic, but also like the transition from like young woman to human is crazy, you know. And the way that relates to mothers and what being not only a woman means, but also what being a human means generationally.
And this is of course when, you know, once Barbie accepts the conditions of what's going to happen, she tells her to just feel.
Yeah. And
Barbie closes her eyes and she feels. And we are treated to just a really stunning montage kind of overlaid of childhood, of a girl's childhood, I believe. Was it all? I can't remember of just
like
anyone on the
feminine
cast.
Joy.
True.
So
just
the behind the scenes context is that Greta went to the cast and crew and said, "Hey, please send me home videos. Send me moments of you, your daughters, your own lives, your mothers, anything."
Yeah.
And so it's made up because she's like, that felt like a culmination of a way of saying that this movie was made by all of us.
That's really lovely.
Yeah. I really, really
because
like it.
I heard in one interview she wanted to do the like a film by and have everybody, but that's not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Because the studio execs are weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Weird DGA rules. You got this montage over the top of Billie Eilish's
Nemo's egg.
Yeah, freaking yeah. What was I made for?
Yes, which is incredible.
Devastating. Yeah.
Incredible.
Heartbreaking in the best way possible.
I listened to it 7 times in one day, all in a row.
Was that your drive back you were telling me about?
I did do that.
The movie ends on the gynecologist line,
which is beautiful, by the way.
It's
a lot of people...
I was so scared she was going to get a job, and I was like, oh no, it's capitalist!
I know that it's funny, but also, I don't know, I think that that's just a really beautiful thing.
It is.
Of, like, normalizing that, and also, like, that being something that Barbie is nervous but also excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's a really perfect note to end on.
I really liked... something you talked to me about, Will, like in context of that kind of jumping off of your point, Max, and feeding it, is this idea that, like, you said something, Will, where you're like, that specific, I'm here to see my gynecologist, is, again, exclusively a woman line. I'm here for a job interview could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to see my gynecologist is, again, Barbie reaffirming connection to woman.
Barbie's choosing to be a woman in America in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Not choosing to be just any old human or become a man and like acquire that power by taking on the cultural ideas of manhood. Like it's faking us out that she's getting a high paying corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
And which is like a great thing that a woman could do or anyone could do.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of showing us something neutral or maybe capitalist, it is something undeniably unique to women's experience.
So I agree.
Not that seeing a gynecologist makes you a woman, though. That's an
Right.
important
Of
thing to
course.
say.
Totally.
But doing something very vulnerable and human. And I'm bad like a Barbie.
Roll credits.
So how do we decide if it's better than Citizen Kane?
Well, hang on.
It is.
Yeah.
Hang on. So there's actually... Okay.
Hold on.
Are we done? Are we still going?
No. Yeah. We're
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Still going.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, first I want to ask, because this is a crossover, first I want to ask, does this fit the criteria of being a Barbie movie?
Oh, lots of horses. Some MILFs.
More
Walkable
horses.
City.
More horses, MILFs, and walkable cities than we've ever seen
I
in
could
any
ever
2
dream.
hours.
I think she listened to the podcast. When the first horse joke was in there, I was a little bit scared that maybe Greta heard my speaking voice on.
Leo said,
on
"You
a
better put a
recording."
horse in the podcast," and she's like, "Yeah, they're
It's a lot of horses.
but horses are
There's
the
horse Mount
patriarchy.
Rushmore.
Sorry, yeah, like horses
Yeah.
are in this movie more than horses were in
I
spirit,
didn't. Yeah.
and
So she listened.
it is.
She listened for her, for sure.
And what else? There was the one that isn't there that we've been talking about.
Or like an animal sidekick, but there is that
There's a
dog.
robot dog,
The
but
robot
animal
dog.
sidekick is not.
And I remember that. I had a
Prominent
lot of
in
friends
this.
with the pooping dog. Not super prominent in
Is
animal
Bibble an
sidekick.
animal?
I don't want to talk about Bibble.
Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have
I thought this was going to be the one.
I'm sorry.
I thought this crossover was going
I
to be my
thought this
one
was going to be the one
episode.
where we don't talk about
Oh, I'm
Bibble.
sorry.
The one where they don't talk about Bibble was my favorite episode of Friends.
The one where they don't. Just any episode of Friends.
First rule of Bibble. We don't talk about Bibble.
Every episode of Friends is alternatively titled "The One Where They Don't Talk About
Or, it's the Doctor
Yeah.
Strangelove subtitle.
Bibble." That one person who's like, "Can't wait till the one where they do." They don't.
My dog.
Yeah.
Can I bring up something
Please.
really quick before we dive into Citizen Kane criteria? Is that the Barbie criteria?
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
12 out of 12 dancing
12
princesses
out of 12
for
dancing
me.
princesses, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great. I'll give it that too.
I would also agree.
I haven't seen the 12 Dancing Princesses, but I'll say that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I've brought my gender studies textbook, Gendered Lives, by Natalie Fixmer-Ores and Julia T. Wood, because there's something that I wanted to bring up specifically, which came up in my discussion with Parker after seeing it the first time, which was I love that this movie, again, in that first scene with Weird Barbie, where she's talking about, hey, the feelings of the girl who's playing with you on the other side of this, nebulous membrane of play, is feeling these things, and that's being reflected through you. And something that I brought up with Parker and a few of the other people that we saw the movie with is I kind of brought up this random thing that came to my mind, and I found the actual passages that I was referencing. So I'm going to read about them here, and I just want to see if this feels at all applicable to the movie Barbie 2023, directed by Greta Gerwig, written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Shout out to Noah Baumbach, who also contributed a little, as far as we know.
The Madagascar 3 guy?
Yeah,
That's
the
the
same
dude.
guy who
Yeah.
helped write Madagascar 3. Yeah. Europe's Most Wanted. There was a polka dot afro. All right. Boys' games usually involve fairly large groups, 9 individuals for each baseball team, for instance. Most boys' games are competitive, have clear goals, involve physically rough play in large spaces, and are organized by rules and roles that specify who does what and how to play. Because the games boys typically play are structured by goals and rules, there is limited need to discuss how to play, although there may be talk about strategies. In playing games, boys learn to 1. Use communication to assert your ideas, opinions, and identity. 2. Use talk to achieve something, such as solving problems or developing strategies. 3. Use communication to attract and maintain others' attention. And 4. Use communication to compete for the talk stage. Make yourself stand out, take attention away from others, and get others to pay attention to you. So that's how boys learn in societal kind of how children are gendered, how gender first shows up when you're growing up. That's how boys learn to communicate. That's what their games and toys teach them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Girls' games. Many girls today also play competitive games. In addition, most girls play some games that few boys play. The games played primarily by girls cultivate distinct ways of communicating. Girls tend to play in pairs or in small groups rather than large ones. Games such as House and School do not have preset clear-cut goals and roles. There is no touchdown in playing School, and the roles of teacher or student aren't fixed like the roles of guard and forward. When playing, young girls spend more time talking than doing anything else, a pattern that is not true of young boys' play. Playing House, for instance, typically begins with a discussion about who is going to be a parent and who's going to be a child. The lack of preset goals for the games requires girls to develop interpersonal communication skills. The games generally played by girls teach 4 basic rules for communication. 1. Use communication to create and maintain relationships. The process of communication, not its content, is the heart of relationships. 2. Use communication to establish egalitarian relations with others. Don't outdo, criticize, or put down others. If you have to criticize, be gentle. 3. Use communication to include others, bring them into conversations, respond to their ideas. And 4. Use communication to show sensitivity to others and relationships. And I think that Barbie is actually a very good look at especially in how the Kens interact, specifically using communication to attract and maintain others' attention, and also communication as a way of making yourself stand out and taking attention away from others is very much portrayed by the Kens and how they interact with one another. Whereas the Barbies are very much like, we're going to talk.
Yeah.
And I just think, I don't know, I thought that it was a very good way of also introducing the communication and also, again, tying in playing as kids. I don't know.
I like that. That's also, I feel like that's really visible in the hi Ken, hi Barbie, that part, because Ken gets really frustrated when everybody else starts talking and also saying hi Barbie, establishing relationships, when he was trying to get Barbie's attention by saying hi Barbie. That's really cool.
I don't know. And obviously it's not saying this is how it always is. In fact, it's mostly saying we shouldn't make it like this.
Yeah.
But I thought that was something.
The movie's playing off of those stereotypes.
Absolutely.
That is
those
really
ideas and
cool.
concepts and
a good observation.
It's really great material. Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah.
The Barbie is great proof of that
right.
concept and offers actually interesting solutions.
Yeah.
I wish Ken would have found that book in the middle school library.
Wouldn't that be nice? Can you imagine if Ken walked back to Barbie Land with an armful of Brene Brown?
Gender studies.
Yeah. What a world.
Wow.
It's I found the bell jar. Are you okay?
All right.
Yeah.
That's Barbie.
That's Barbie.
That's Barbie.
But
how does this work? Are we doing concessions? Are we doing...
Can we do a quick snack run?
Can we do a snack run?
Okay.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
Halfway through the podcast.
Congrats, folks.
Yeah, let's do a snack break.
We're rocking it. We're doing great.
Hey. Still shorter than Oppenheimer!
Usually our criteria goes pretty quick. I think we've done a very lengthy discussion thus far, and so the Better Than Citizen Kane stuff is going to be very
we can blast
brief.
through it.
But yeah, we do need to do a snack break, though,
Let's do a snack break.
I need to stand
What do you
up.
all want to steal from my mother who stood still's pantry?
Ooh.
Well, as guests here, I would love, what's the... I'm going to put you in the role of, house waiter right now. What do you...
That's feeling a real sexist, dog.
That was talking to both of you.
You were looking right at her. There's a camera. I was watching.
Hold that back. Hold that back.
You were looking right
This
at her.
guy asked me what's for dinner. I don't know. I'm getting Thin Mints. I gotta finish my popsicle because I'm swallowing really loud and I don't want it to be on a podcast. My podcast juice is freezing over.
Rio has to freeze her brain in order to talk about Citizen Kane.
I love Heather's 2016.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about the cinematic masterpiece Citizen Kane?
I liked it when I did that one shot.
Rio confided in me, and I'm sure you know this, Will.
Don't tell him.
I won't tell him. Rio might be our first guest who hasn't seen Citizen Kane.
I saw 11 seconds. I saw this thing.
But no trespassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
And then I got real sleepy.
It happens to
Can't
all
imagine
of us.
why.
Yeah.
I love
And I
melatonin
got
in the movie.
real
It's not like
sleepy.
Parker and I started this podcast because we both have
We're pretty
I can't believe that they made
Kind
Fantasia
of.
2000 for men.
Yeah.
Ah,
You have the correct relationship with Citizen Kane.
truly. The criteria that we weigh movies against Citizen Kane through is 1, historical/technical relevance in cinema history. 2 is how well is it doing what it's trying to do, and 3 is did you connect with it emotionally. Can't imagine what any of us are going to say.
Yeah, no clue about that third one.
But-
That's really up in the air.
Who wants to start?
I think over the next 20 years, if you want to understand what's going to be happening now in the film industry and the way that it's going and what it will look like, and also understand 20th century filmmaking really well, Barbie's going to be required watching. In like every film school, it's just, it's going to be an important, a canonical movie.
Sure.
So I think that if you're going into filmmaking right now and you can only watch one, I think for your career's sake, you have to watch Barbie.
This is what's difficult, because we ran into the same issue.
But Citizen Kane is one of the best movies ever made.
Which is also consistently what we keep running into when we talk about movies. Okay, but go ahead.
But no, just like you and I talked about this with Puss in Boots, where like
Right.
super recent movies, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Barbie came out, what, 4 days ago?
At the
Yeah.
time of recording, 4 days
Recency
ago.
bias could not be
Like-
stronger.
It's but what I will say is even in those 4 days, we are already seeing history being made. Yeah, officially the biggest opening weekend for a female director in history. It has grossed $162 million during its opening weekend in the US and Canada alone.
Yeah.
This surpassed the other record holders for female-directed film debuts. Captain Marvel in 2019 opened to $153 million, and Wonder Woman in 2017 opened to $103 million. Additionally, some things that I think are interesting in terms of like a historical context. Women drove Barbie's success, making up 65% of the audience. Men typically make up the audience majority for films that make over $100 million in their debut. Additionally, 40% of those viewers were under the age of 25. So, looking at those kinds of numbers in historical context, feeding into your point, Will, like, this does feel like a cultural moment happening in real time. Like, film history is being made just solely in, like, not only the droves of people going to see it, but who specifically is going to see it and driving that success. And, like, so much of filmmaking as a business, you know, you learn in producing classes is looking at, like, the 4 quadrants and trying to find something that appeals to all these different people. And then you always try to, like, niche down. You try to find, okay, this movie caters to this and this and this. And predominantly the niche, and I say niche with the biggest scare quotes in the world because it is not, it's a majority, but most movies are catering to men ages like 18 to 35. Like, that is predominantly the biggest chunk of the movie-going audience. And this film not only is breaking records, right now it has worldwide, I might be wrong about that. It might be domestically. I do know that I read somewhere that it is lining up to be the 4th biggest opening weekend, period,
of all time, right? Yeah.
of all time. Is that worldwide or is that domestically? Do you know?
I think it's domestic.
That sounds about right. I think
Yeah.
it's domestic.
And I heard that its opening weekend beat out Mario.
It did.
This year,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
which was also a huge
Yeah, it's the biggest.
shattering.
Yeah, it's the biggest opening
When
weekend
Mario
of the year.
changed movies and the movie business forever, and now
Wow, and now we live in Mario
And
world.
also, like, post-pandemic, too.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
That's another big thing going on right now. So,
it's
like,
already...
yeah.
a big deal that anybody was there.
It proved that there's a new demographic that will feed the cinematic economy for the next 15 to 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And will absolutely show up when they are catered to.
Yeah.
If you make a good movie for them.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is coming out at a time when actors and writers are on strike.
Mm-hmm.
And also at a time when, like, massive franchise blockbusters are kind of flopping this year. Like, you look at what's been happening so far this year, and they're really underperforming. And I feel like also, like, the amount of money that the Writers Guild is asking for is basically like the budget of a Dial of Destiny, of an Indiana Jones, which came out at the end of June.
0.09%.
Yeah, like
0.1%.
The other thing to keep in mind, historically, is that in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, we have seen mid-budget films die. Barbie is not necessarily a mid-budget film, but when compared to the cost of most summer hits in the past few years, what is it, 140 million? 150 million is how much it costs to make Barbie?
145.
Yeah, 145 million. So right in the middle of what I said.
Yeah.
What are
you got it.
what's like the average? What's a blockbuster cost normally, fellas?
Does anyone know?
The Lord of the Rings TV show costs $1 billion. Marvel movies cost over $300 million.
The budget to make Barbie and Oppenheimer together, and again, I didn't check this figure, so maybe this is false, but the two budgets of these two movies together is still less than it took to make Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Oppenheimer, I think, is like
We just hate girls,
78
huh?
million, maybe?
Yeah.
Just like I don't know, it's so unethical because they sold out all the pink paint in the entire world and it's so expensive, this high budget movie. And it's like not as expensive
It's
as
not even
It's
a
not.
Marvel movie.
close.
But I
We
think,
just hate girls, huh?
but I really hope that, you know, obviously we're at a precipice with studios right now, and I hope that if ever they decide to come back to the table,
It was 100 million even, sorry.
100 million even for Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Okay, so $245 million total to make these two movies.
Yeah, less than...
Which are, whew, okay, sorry. Anyway, absolutely
change.
bonkers to
$250 million.
$250 to make as much money as they've already made.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer is also doing incredibly well as a biopic,
Mm-hmm.
historical biopic. So anyway, the other thing that I want to keep in mind is not just historical, but technical relevancy. Parker already talked about this earlier. We already talked about this earlier. Barbie is also using classic filmmaking techniques, like matte paintings, like, you know, physical sets, these sorts of things, at a time in film history when that is not common, that is not necessary, that is not something that studios are pursuing, because typically their argument is, that I have heard before, is that, you know, asking like physical prop makers and set builders to make those things costs more than it does to have visual effects departments do, which apparently is a lie.
The budgets for the next 3 Avatar movies are like maybe $1 billion to make all those movies, and they're all CGI.
Right. And
We
so,
just hate the working class too.
Well, because again, that gets into the fact that like visual effects, you know, the industry is not unionized. They don't have a union, so they can be taken advantage of, which is the real reason.
Cheaper labor
It's
because
cheaper labor.
Because it's exploitative.
So again, looking at
We
Barbie
just hate
on
women
this,
in the working class the whole time.
and that's what Barbie wanted you to realize too.
No!
So I feel like not just historically, but technically, Barbie is doing something that is very impressive for the time.
Sure.
If you look at not necessarily all of film history, but specifically what it's doing in its moment, it is a star shining in a sea of awfulness.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Unless
I'm
you
glad you
are
said, that's
unless
crazy.
you are the person who thinks that the Marvelification of Hollywood is the best thing that's ever happened to the movies,
Right.
Greta Gerwig just proved the antithesis
Of
to be true for the next 10 or 20 years. Like, a Marvel movie is third and fourth, I think, on this year's box office reports so far, and Barbie's gonna not stop making money this year.
It's gonna keep going.
And that means it's over. You know?
Hopefully.
Barbie, I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
You know, we've been saying maybe superheroes are on their way out or whatever. Barbie will be considered either the end of the superhero era or the beginning of whatever the next one is.
Yeah.
Well, I said this in our like pre-show podcast of like we've talked about this already, like the third placification of the movie theater and people going in groups, and I'm every single conversation I've had, like somebody checks, like does the cashier job at the store, and I'm like, have you seen Barbie yet? I don't know, like everyone's talking about it, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, and I don't know, were you guys really worried for a little bit that I was like, our movie's just gonna be kind of bad forever?
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw.
That's something I was feeling even just.
I saw
3 months
Endgame
ago.
5 days ago.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Endgame at a great theater in a packed house and kind of being like, "There's never gonna be another movie made again that I'm actually gonna like."
Well, I having all of the faith and love in the world for Greta Gerwig, there was a part of me that has been so soured by moviegoing that I was worried Barbie might be bad.
Oh yeah.
There was a moment where I was like, is there a version of this that is just the worst?
Yeah. Well,
we've been conditioned they're gonna make the worst, most sellout decision every time.
And honestly, you guys, that we saw it on Thursday. And then Friday, and then Saturday, and then also tomorrow. But, and every day, and forever.
Yeah.
But I, literally experienced, kind of the strangest and deepest depression of my life, right after I saw it. One, couldn't speak for several hours after seeing it for the first time. And then, woke up and felt awful because it was this was so important to me and so insane. And what if nobody else likes it? You know, which I just wonder, people who saw Star Wars for the first time and were like, wow, that's changed my entire worldview and how I look at myself and everybody in it and everybody in the world, it's what if they don't get it?
That's such a curse.
If
you're the guy who sees Star Wars opening day,
it's
and no one goes and sees it, but now your whole life has to be Star Wars.
I don't know, I was so scared, horrified.
Yeah.
No movie has ever made me genuinely afraid that I was I might lose relationships over this. I might.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. I didn't know that I could feel that way about a movie.
So I think that's all 3 of your criteria. And she's talking about Citizen Kane. For those who weren't taking notes, what'd you think of Barbie?
It's funny. I liked it.
Great.
Cool. Yeah. So that's that criteria.
Yeah.
How well do you think Barbie is doing what it's trying to do? First off, what do you think it's trying to do, and how well is it doing that?
I think it's trying to prove, by just being such an effective and well-crafted movie, that women have to be in the top 5 box office of every year forever. It's trying to do, I don't know, who can say what, it's trying to do a lot. It's also trying to get us on this couch talking about this movie with each other, and
Right, I think we spent 2.5 hours talking about what it's doing.
I don't know if the movie's ever done it better.
That's another thing that I've seen people critique of, it doesn't stick the landing on anything it's trying to comment on. And I think it's also, I feel like Barbie is also trying to say that that's okay. That and is important, and having to operate under difficult capitalism in order to make a movie. I guess even not a high budget movie though, huh? But still high. Yeah.
But
also it's does it answer any of our questions? And it's maybe not really. And you can still make a movie about a question and not have to answer it.
It acknowledges that everyone has the same question in a way that we haven't been able to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of, it's literally
breaking the cognitive dissonance.
You can't expect the Barbie movie to do what everybody's expecting Barbie the doll to do. Where it's did it solve feminism worldwide?
It's the thing of and if we put all of those same pressures on a doll / aka a movie
/ a
then
female
what are
director,
we even doing
/ an actress.
any woman, anything representing women?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I think that's a great point too. This is something I was thinking about, of why the Trixie Mattel video is so good and why that opening sequence is so good of taking us through all the Barbies, of Barbie came out and Barbie did change things. Mm-hmm. Barbie proved that there's a place in the economy for young girls.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, right? And
outside of, again,
that's something we've known forever because women are the highest consumers.
Yeah, and an image, an aspiration, and a toy other than motherhood, and all these amazing things that Barbie did, economically, culturally, in the feminist movement, and also, you know, you can argue that it set it back or whatever. But that's every time Barbie comes out. Barbie changes the world. And this movie is our generation's Barbie. Like, this is the idea of Barbie that we are given. In the way that the doll wasn't the idea of Barbie. Now it's a movie. It's like, this is not Barbie goes to the real world.
Yeah.
It could have been. This could have been named anything. Barbie as what it like.
Yeah.
There's not a Barbie movie that's been called Barbie the movie.
Yeah.
This is
Barbie.
Barbie just came out.
Yeah.
Like how
That's
people
a great
said in
point. I like
1959, if you could go back in time, you'd be like, Barbie just came out.
Yeah.
That's crazy. This is a Barbie. This is a new platonic ideal of womanhood in America.
It's been the meme for so long of Barbenheimer, because they both came out the same day. But also, like, in the context of what we're talking about right now, we have two directors with proven track records, proven bodies of works, proven box office success, proven critical success. And not a single person I've heard or seen online has once been like, I don't know, we'll see if Nolan sticks the landing. We'll see if he gets to do another one after this.
Yeah.
I consistently, people are talking about that with Greta.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, this has to be the biggest thing ever. Like before it was the biggest thing ever, and it's been blowing all these records out of the water over the weekend. So much of the conversation was that. It was like, well, it's a really high budget for her. She's never worked at this scale before. Nobody said that shit about Nolan when he did Batman Begins.
Yeah, and also when she came out and was like, I want to be a studio filmmaker. She's like, I don't want to be an indie film. She's like, I want to make studio films. So people were like, oh. It's like,
it just...
You're an art house director.
Right.
Don't tell a woman what she can be and do.
It just, yeah.
It's and that it is Christopher Nolan that she's like competing against in the box office.
Is Christopher Nolan.
We picked the dudiest filmmaker who is like seen as the person who once the boys take the box office back over and Christopher Nolan's making movies again, then it'll be good. It's like, I hate Marvel. My favorite director is Christopher Nolan.
Right.
Like that's another group of person, and I love you. Thanks for listening. But I just assume that's your guys' target demographic.
Our target demographic is us.
Hi, Margie.
And sometimes my dad.
I was going to say us and our three listeners.
Greta Gerwig is dunking on Christopher Nolan in the box office, and that is not something I could have imagined a year ago.
Sure.
Because I'm a sexist. No, just because it's not...
You keep telling on yourself, man.
Cut it out. Wow. It's just, it makes me...
He controls
just edit out the parts
I'll
where
cut it out. I'll cut
just
it
edit
out.
out the parts where I look bad.
I'll cut all these out.
I'll make AI say that and then make it Max's voice.
Coolsville
No,
sucks.
it's just not how the business has worked.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
And she changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
I also
no, but you're
think...
right. It was internalized sexism, right? I was so freaking nervous of like, what if it's bad?
Yeah.
What if it's bad? And it's like, and then that's why that morning I was like, oh my gosh, what if it's good? Like, I don't know, it is sexism and it's internalized, you know?
I also want to say that I think that Barbie is also trying to be very funny, and it succeeds at that.
As a comedy, the funniest comedy I've seen in a theater maybe ever.
Yep.
I laughed out loud.
It's trying to comment on the patriarchy, in case you didn't know.
What?
I know, it's wild.
The what now?
And
that's my Timothy Chalamet as well.
Oh, that was good. Does he say that?
He goes, Oompa what now?
Oh yeah, he does.
Make a chocolate course.
I'm making chocolate, of course.
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
How about what if we do an episode on that in December and I'll be on it and I also won't have seen that movie either.
Yeah, okay. I also want to say that I think Barbie is also trying to be very funny, and it's working. It is consistently laugh out loud funny. It is drawing on physical comedy. It is drawing on, again, like the references that she pointed out of like the Philadelphia story and those sorts of things. And it's also, again, it's trying to take filmmaking back to another kind of era, but also not just in a nostalgic way, which I think something else that Ryan Gosling has been in. I'll let you guess what it is.
Ooh.
Is also trying to do that in a much more like specific, like we're doing this.
Yeah.
Whereas Gerwig is specifically like using it to her advantage as, well, what if a fake like Dreamhouse set was also just like a soundstage, because that's kind of what that looked like. I think she's just executing that super, super well.
Totally.
And again, you have like this existential element that absolutely lands. You have this element of like how the patriarchy obviously like oppresses women, and she tackles that really well. But also, again, as we've talked about, how she also somehow finds the time to be like, it's something for the boys too.
Sure.
Like, that's cool.
The La La Land, I'm going to say it. The La La Land, like, you know.
Oh, no, now you're actually talking to our demographic.
The La La Land Dream Ballet stuff lands, and you're, like, loving it if you're obsessed with Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Which, like, it's the same audience, but you see it in enough diverse theaters, you know people are loving that Dream Ballet.
Yeah.
And have never seen Singing in the Rain before in their life. They have no idea what it's referencing, but it's working well.
Yeah.
As a dream ballet.
Yeah.
Like, in order to be a great parody, you have to be a great version of the thing that you're parodizing.
Or homaging.
Or homaging. And it's like doing all of those. Like, it is also just some of the best choreography in a movie. Like,
really
it is
good.
also the best musical that came out this year.
What else has come out this year? Nothing?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the point.
That's the point.
What
like,
else?
I could see, like, what if
I loved
soundstage
Indiana
musical
Jones's
comedies came
moment.
back because of this
His
movie?
I Want song. Parker, I have a joke to make later.
Oh, no, I know. You don't have to say the joke. I know the joke.
Okay, my laptop's gonna die. Let's finish
We gotta
this
go.
thing. Okay, what's our last criteria?
Last criteria.
Oh, did you finish?
No, I think we're fine. We did it.
Yeah.
We're giving it to Barbie?
We're giving
Well,
I mean,
what's the
Is
rest
Barbie
of the
Emotion.
the
Well, the
last
last
one
one,
Barbie
Not
emotion.
all
doing
the
what it's
criteria.
okay, Is
The last-
Barbie doing what it's doing better than Citizen Kane is doing what it's doing?
Yes.
Do you want me to
Okay.
cry right now?
I cried like
Well,
a
think
baby
about the
in
movie.
Barbie. I've never
You-
shed a solitary tear watching Citizen Kane.
Okay, so you emotionally connected to Barbie.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
didn't emotionally connect. And that's the same for you?
yes.
That's the same for you.
Absolutely.
You fell asleep. And I also feel the same way.
Mhm.
Which means this
Barbie,
is a clean
yeah.
sweep.
Clean
Okay,
sweep.
let's all say it at the same time. Barbie
Barbie
is
is
better
better
than
than
Citizen
Citizen
Kane.
We did it, folks. Oh,
And
wow.
it only took us 3 hours.
This is the crossover episode. It's 2 of our episodes combined.
Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
listening.
everybody.
Next
Listen,
time, Zakira.
Next time is Barbie Diaries.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
So if you like Akira,
See the worst Barbie movie.
Or if
yet.
you like Barbie Diaries,
Yeah.
tune in to the Odd Brothers podcast.
Check out Mind Over Mattel.
thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, please do. I would love it.
And
We're doing
better
our
than
best.
Citizen Kane.
We're doing our best,
All right.
and it will fall in.
Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.